On the field. Off the field. Sports talk. Entertainment and more. This is Sauce on the Side.
Well, hello there, Dippers, and welcome back to episode 127 of the Sauce on the Side podcast. As always, Dippers, I'm your host, Drake, joined by the man, the producer, Mr. Leighton Pip Shavantone.
1 week, the Sauce on the Side podcast curse strikes once. This week, it strikes twice.
And joining us for the three-man weave today, we have Fletcher Hoig.
You know, they're doing a lot with how to restructure the NBA season. I have a proponent. You cut the preseason in half, and so you start the season earlier. You eliminate back-to-backs. But then the way the schedule works is your division opponents, you have 4 of them. You play them 4 times. Then you have 6 other in-conference opponents you play 4 times. And then the remaining conference opponents you play 3 times. Instead of all that travel back and forth, just make them into mini-series for when your team plays at home. So like when you play the Bucks, one night you play the Bucks, off night, the next night you play the Bucks at Milwaukee. So you eliminate that travel. Boom. That's way better than going down to 78 games and having some stupid in-season tournament.
That's actually a really good idea.
I heard it here first.
And that tournament idea is the dumbest thing ever.
I love the tournament.
I don't want to watch that. It's not college.
I love the
That's
tournament.
because you like the basketball tournament.
All right, we're going to go ahead and, right now, we're just going to go ahead and audible on our outline. Whenever we get to the basketball, we're going to dive into that tournament for just a minute. I want to talk about that for a little bit. So, Dippers, as always...
I can already tell you what's going to happen with that tournament.
Well, we'll find out.
We'll find out in a little bit.
In like 45 minutes, we'll know.
Yep, we will know in 45 minutes. As always, Dippers, we will start off with covering Week 16 with our word association recap, hit on our storylines, talk a little bit about the NCAA football we have this weekend. We actually have a really good bowl game outside of the college football playoff. We will talk about the college football playoff, hit a little bit on the NBA and college basketball. The NCAA never ceases to amaze us. We'll start it off first. Week 16, word association recap. Fletcher, give us your biggest winner.
The Ravens and the Dolphins.
Why the Dolphins?
They lost, right?
They won.
They won.
They won?
They beat the Bengals.
No, they did not.
Yes, they
Yeah,
did.
they did.
Andy Dalton, I thought Andy Dalton led him back to win.
No, it was
we gotta erase that.
It was very misleading. Andy Dalton was down by 16 points with 33 seconds left. Ended up sending the game into overtime.
So Bengals.
Just the Ravens were the winner.
Yeah.
Latency, biggest winner.
Bengals on the clock.
My biggest winner this week, Le'Veon Bell. 25 carries, 2.9 yards per carry, but he is 1-0 all time against the Steelers.
That's a revenge game for the books.
Revenge game for the books. 2.9 yards per carry.
He got plenty of work.
Yeah, he got... Oh, no. There was no shy of getting work. This just reminds me of like his old Steelers stat lines where he'd have like 120 yards, but he had like 46 carries.
Yeah.
Biggest loser.
Well, it was the Bengals, but it's now the Dolphins.
Absolutely. Latency, biggest loser.
The Seahawks, they had a chance to get the number 1 seed in the NFC, and now they're going to hopefully get the NFC West Championship because they lost to the Cardinals at home.
They can still get a bye game.
Can they?
Bye first round, as long as I think it's a weird
So they
scenario.
have to have the Saints, Packers lose, and they win next week.
Yes, as
It has
long
to
as
be
they
it.
win next week, they win their division. So then I think they'll get the first round
If
bye.
the Packers lose tonight and next week, and the Saints lose next week, then that's what it is, yeah.
We got a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of stuff has to happen.
A lot of stuff going
Very
on. in the
unlikely.
NFC. My biggest loser, me. I've been to 2 Bears games this season. One was opening night against the Packers, 0 touchdowns. The other was last night against the Chiefs, 0 touchdowns. I've been to 2 Bears games, absolutely no scores.
What's the career record at Bears games?
I think I'm 1-6 now.
I watched one of those losses, too. That was funny.
Yeah.
I watched 2 of the losses, actually.
Yeah,
now that
I think
about
3
it.
of them.
And 2 of the losses were to the Lions.
I
That's
think
a tough pill to swallow.
3 or 4 of them.
Yeah,
The first one was the best, though.
You know what? Honestly, the worst quarterback performances I've watched, and I watched Jay Cutler and Jimmy Clausen, has been from Mitch Trubisky twice now. Fletcher, biggest surprise of Week 16.
I can't believe I'm saying this for a Week 16 guy, but Tom Brady's performance absolutely surprised me. The guy was sucking so bad, and then he goes 26 of 33, 270, and a touchdown. Against the Bills' defense, that's really good. I'm like, that was pretty surprising to me because I was expecting a shit show.
Yes, that was actually a huge surprise. Latency, biggest surprise of Week 16.
1 week after we named Jameis Winston wide receiver proof, he throws 4 picks against the Houston Texans defense.
Saucy Pod Curse.
That's right.
My biggest surprise of Week 16, it's that the Dolphins and Bengals and then the Giants and Redskins games were all the best games of the week. Two teams that you thought absolutely should lose these games. All four teams needed to lose, and they went out there and actually tried to win.
I wish that the Dallas Cowboys and Philadelphia Eagles game was like the Dolphins and Bengals, and then the Cowboys and Eagles game was for the fucking Dolphins and Bengals.
Yeah, where it was actually like a good game.
Shootout, overtime. Like, I would have loved to have seen that.
Yeah, instead we get like an all-time NFC. Like, that was the epitome of the NFC East. Like,
God, that was
this year,
bad.
nobody wants to win except Carson Wentz. All right, Fletcher. Biggest disappointment of Week 16.
It's not just the biggest appointment of Week 16, but then the entire season also is the fucking Cleveland Browns. They're a joke. Freddie Kitchens is a dumpster fire. John Dorsey, he sucks. They have so many pieces on offense, and they just, like, I know they got their flaws as far as their offensive line goes, but they should be doing so much better than what they are now. I read that fucking Freddie Kitchens doesn't practice situationally, and there was a scout in the NFL for a different team that said he's just making it all up as he goes.
That's absolutely awesome. Make it up as you go, on the fly. They're basically playing Fletch on the fly for a multi-million-dollar organization.
Billion, almost.
Yeah, $1 billion. Well, it's Cleveland.
Don't overstate their value.
Yeah, I don't think anything's worth $1 billion in Cleveland. I'm actually going to parlay.
In New England, they probably only practice situational football all week long.
Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely
And
agree.
then Freddie Kitchens is like, let's just run some slants, let's run some goes, and let's get out of here, boys.
Yeah, I'm actually going to go ahead and steal this one, Leighton, because my biggest disappointment has to be the Browns as well, but for a different reason. With the Bengals losing, the Browns solidified themselves of having the worst quarterback in the AFC East next year, now that Joe Burrow will be a Bengal.
Yep.
Leighton C., your biggest disappointment of Week 16.
Kellen Moore's awareness of his own team. Yesterday at halftime, Dak Prescott hit a sprained wrist and a hairline fracture in his index finger through 11 for his 18.
Didn't throw a pass all week at practice.
Nope, not one pass. But somehow he was fine on Saturday.
Threw it 44 times.
Yep, and then Digger Elliott at halftime had 5 rushes. For the game, he had 12. Amari Cooper was also hurt almost the entire game. Yet Kellen Moore insisted on slinging that ball around.
Yeah, that makes absolutely no sense. That's like zero awareness. That's basically like you just picked up a controller on Madden and decided that you were just going to try to make like Amari Cooper the guy who gets 2,000 yards in a season.
That's what I do every time I play.
Well, this time the quarterback's actually hurt, and Amari Cooper doesn't look right. Zeke Elliott's the only guy who you can lean on to win, and he gets 5 carries in the first half.
Yeah, we're going to talk about that game more, but that was stupid.
All right, impact injury of Week 16.
So the Ravens have 12 Pro Bowlers, so I don't know how big it's going to be, but Mark Ingram has been huge for them all year, and I'm sure Justice Hill can handle some more work, but losing Mark Ingram like that, he's going to be out for like 4 or 5 games, I think.
Is that what it said?
Well, that's what they're anticipating.
Oh, damn.
Nothing confirmed yet, but yeah, that's like all the way up to the Super Bowl. That really sucks for them.
Yeah,
And they had one dude that really does suck.
yeah. If there's one guy on that offense outside of Lamar Jackson that you can't lose, it is definitely Mark Ingram.
Yeah.
Leighton C., impact injury Week 16.
Mark Ingram and Chris Carson from the Seahawks.
Yeah,
I don't know how
the whole
bad.
backfield.
I didn't say bad Chris Carson's was, but they brought Marshawn Lynch today, so I guess it's pretty bad.
Yes, they said that Chris Carson's injury is probably season-ending. My biggest impact injury is the Seattle running backs.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
in general. You lose, not only do you lose Rashard Penny, who finally was coming into his own, just like 3 weeks ago, you lose him, and then in one game, you end up losing your starting running back and Chris Carson for the remainder of the season, and you lose C.J. Prosise to a broken arm, so we just anticipate that he'll be done for the rest of the season. Now you're left with Travis Homer as your starting running back, unless Beast Mode comes around and decides to play, which I hope he does. All right, WTF moment.
The Browns fan that gave Baker and all those guys a double bird, that was pretty hilarious.
Yeah, no, you gotta love that. And, you know, honestly, Browns fans have always been pretty just mild-mannered, but now that they are actually, you know, expectations,
Yeah.
they're turning on them fast.
It's easier to be bad and stay bad than you're supposed to be good and be bad.
Yes,
Lovable losers.
exactly. Just like my Cubs for many years. Leighton C., WTF moment of Week 16.
Carson Wentz has played 55 career games. He has 47 fumbles. Not all lost, but he has 47 fumbles in 55 games.
And they always talked about how good that offensive line was.
Right? I don't know. Like, I guess a lot of times he gets his ball knocked out of his hands and he just grabs it. That's fine, I guess. But shit, holding the ball.
I don't think he has small hands either.
Well, what he does, he runs around in the pocket with one hand on the ball. And like a lot of your guys, like Phillip Rivers and Tom Brady, will have 2 hands on the ball and they'll duck their shoulders one way or another, and they'll never take 2 hands off the ball until they go to throw it. So
Yeah, and Carson Wentz back there looking like Shady McCoy running in the open field. My biggest WTF moment of Week 16 is when I realized that Dak Prescott has exactly 0 game-winning drives this season. There are 33 quarterbacks in the NFL that have at least one this year. Only he and Andy Dalton are the only quarterbacks to start 10 games this year and have exactly 0 game-winning drives. Overreaction of Week 16.
Patriots offense is back, and so they're now back as Super Bowl favorites.
I actually have something to parlay off of that. Sony Michel is the only liability on the Patriots offense. You look at the other running backs in the room. James White, 6.5 yards per touch. Rex Burkhead, 6.2 yards per touch. Sony Michel, 3.9 yards per touch.
That one guy said it best last week. He said, Sony Michel, experiment's over.
No, it's terrible. And you look at, like, they passed up on Nick Chubb to get Sony Michel. Mm-hmm. Same team.
Yeah.
Latency, biggest overreaction.
From a pure talent perspective, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback of all time.
Now, that's an overreaction, I guess.
Period.
Yeah. You might honestly be right.
From a pure skill and talent perspective, he hasn't mind yet, but my God, imagine him when he's like 30, and he's seen all the defenses the NFL can possibly put out against him, and he reads somehow is still alive, and had a heart attack, still coaching from the sideline.
No, I actually think that you're not too far off on the boat.
He's 25.
Yeah, no, he's young, he's good, and quite frankly, he might be the best of all time when you just look at all the abilities.
Very good. Very, very good. So, Drake, you think Mahomes is the best quarterback of all time?
Very well could be. I don't know if I can say he's the best of all time, but he very well could be at the end of all this.
Do you think Mitch will ever sniff the ability of Patrick Mahomes?
Probably not.
Is Mitch done to Chicago after this season?
Probably not.
You have thoughts for us?
Yes, I do. NCAA, you really showed James Wiseman. Now at best, we will have 2 of the top 5 prospects playing in March. Unfortunately, it may be in the NIT. Death, taxes, Jason Garrett losing must-win primetime games. Death, taxes, and Jerry Jones rolling Jason Garrett out to coach Week 1 of next season. I looked at the bowl schedule, and there must have been a misprint. Nebraska wasn't on there. I couldn't imagine that the voters of any college committee would mess it up so bad where a team doesn't even make a bowl game that was preseason top 25. As if we thought Antonio Brown lost his mind 6 months ago. Antonio Brown to the rest of the world. Hold my beer. Things you may believe if you started watching football in Week 16. Patriots offense is still elite, and the Chiefs have the best defense in the NFL. Week 16 of the NFL season. Ryan Fitzpatrick versus Andy Dalton. Loser gets replaced by Joe Burrow Week 1. New NFL rule change for next year. The Buccaneers are mandated to play Saturday. Only game on. And Jameis Winston is all-time QB. Imagine you play fantasy for 16 weeks and you lose your league championship to Mike Boone on Monday night. That will be the sad reality for a lot of people out there. Worst case scenario if you're a Jets fan. Winning 5 of 7 games to end your season. We call this the Jason Garrett Matrix. And there's a new sequel coming out. It airs next August, and it is titled One More Go Around, starring Jason Garrett, and it was written by Jerry Jones. And those have been my thoughts. Alright, so let's go ahead and get to some Week 16 storylines. We started off Saturday with NFL football, which is absolutely weird to say. I was excited about it, and it really didn't disappoint. Obviously, every game was close. Every game was fun. Even whenever you have Jameis Winston running around throwing interceptions, it makes it interesting. So we'll go ahead and start with the Texans and Bucs. So the Texans clinched the AFC South despite a pretty poor day by Deshaun Watson and DeAndre Hopkins. The defense showed up in a huge way, forcing turnovers left and right. Yes, it was against Jameis Winston, but have the Texans quieted any of your concerns with this defensive-led win?
So, it was impressive because last week we did call Jameis Winston receiver proof, and all season long, he just put up insane numbers. But no, because like I said, they didn't have Chris Godwin or Mike Evans, who are 2 huge components. They had to use
the only components.
They had to use Howard, who hadn't been a big part of the offense at all this season for this week. So I still have a few concerns about the Texans, but this is a good sign for them.
Well, no, and it's got nothing to do with Jameis Winston or anything like that as far as the Houston Texans go, because they are still wildly inconsistent, and fucking Bill O'Brien does not understand still the relationship between timeouts and how the clock works.
Oh, no, he's terrible.
And so, despite having Deshaun Watson, DeAndre Hopkins, and trying to improve the offensive line, nothing about them rings consistency or that they can clinch anything. Somehow with Tannehill, the Titans have stormed back into contention for the fucking division. So no part of me is convinced with the Houston Texans at all. And I'll even go a step further and say when they decided to trade one of their defensive pieces because Andrew Luck retired and go for that offensive line, they should have traded J.J. Watt. He's an older player. He hasn't finished the last 5 seasons. It's just that's one of those guys that they find it hard to trade and they're scared to make that move. You got to keep Clowney because he's younger and you can probably get somewhat equal talent for J.J. Watt, or equal return, I mean. So, no, I'm not convinced by anything that the Texans do at this point.
No, I'm not either, And honestly, this win was more concerning than any of their most previous wins that they've had. You look at what the Buccaneers did. They basically handed this game over to the Texans and said, we're dead in the rights. We're going to give you 4 interceptions, and we're going to walk off the field and basically just hand it to you. But for some reason, the Buccaneers were able to stay in this game. You had Jameis Winston throw a pick 6 to start the game, and then a pick that ended up going for 6, but they got called back due to a penalty. You jump on them early. You should have been able to just put them away because they weren't able to pass the balls efficiently because they were down their 2 best wide receivers. They were relying on Rashard Perryman, who's been on 4 teams in 4 years, and you still weren't able to put him away. The Buccaneers, they were 1 dropped wide open pass away from at least tying this game up in the 4th quarter. So I think, if anything, you're looking at this game and you say, this is a game that we should have definitely put away early, especially with one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. We never got our quarterback going, who's supposed to be the staple of the whole entire team. I think this was one of the ugliest wins that the Texans have had this year, and honestly, it does not give me any thought that they will even be able to beat the Titans going into next week. So I think this is very concerning. Obviously, this team's played good cop, bad cop all year with our hearts. So no, I am not sold on the Texans' defense just because they were able to force turnovers on Jameis Winston, just like everybody has. So, guys, what is next for Jameis Winston? I know we're back and forth on this every single week. He goes out, has back-to-back 450-yard games, comes back out this week, and he just gives the ball away 4 times. What are your thoughts for Jameis next year?
Yeah, this might be the hardest decision anything has to make this offseason. Because look at the NFL draft right now. The Bengals are picking 14th to 15th. Ahead of them, we have the Bengals, the Dolphins, the Jaguars, the Panthers, the Chargers. All need quarterbacks.
Yes.
There's 16 ahead of them that need a quarterback. So either trade and get a quarterback, or they just trade Tua fall, which he won't, because like I said, 6 teams ahead of them need a quarterback. So you got to trade up. But ultimately, I think they just franchise tag him and roll with it again. Because that's why the franchise tag is here. So you have a guy, you're not really sure about him, but you want to keep him. You can't really afford to pay him. You just tag him and you deal with it. I think he gets tagged.
Yeah, so they said he's coming back for next year. Their plan is to bring him back. And the only way that they could bring him back that makes sense in my mind is a franchise tag. The guy is about to dip into rarefied air with a 30-30 club, 30 touchdowns, 30 interceptions. That's pretty impressive. If you don't get a quarterback that falls to you, I think you got to franchise tag him. Just date him and don't really try to marry him. But Jameis Winston is 110% not the answer.
I think that if you're wanting a quarterback, I think one trade that kind of sticks in my mind that you might be able to pull off at this point, you pick up the phone, you call the Cardinals, you say, okay, we're going to go ahead and trade you either Chris Godwin or Mike Evans with our first-round pick, and in return, we want David Johnson and your first-round pick. So if you want to get away from Jameis Winston, yes, you're going to be down 1 receiver, but you also have another 1,000-yard receiver there, and plus you're going to get back a David Johnson, who we've seen work great in Bruce Arians' offense and basically be the best running back in the NFL. So if you want to get rid of Jameis Winston, there's an easy way to do it there. Just a pick swap. You swap Godwin. You swap DJ, because obviously the Cardinals are in need of a wide receiver for that pass-heavy offense. But I think Jameis Winston is going to be back. If all they do is just cut down the turnovers for Jameis Winston, this team will be virtually unstoppable on offense with what they have, and really I think their biggest concern should be at the running back position. They legitimately don't have anybody that they can rely and for passes out of the backfield, and Jameis Winston's constantly having to throw the ball down the field. You look at the team's receiving numbers out of the running back position, their leading receiver out of the backfield is their third string running back. So it's not like you have a guy that you can put out there that can kind of do it all, which Bruce Arians has needed in the past. You look at every stop he's went to, had success. They had that dual threat running back that they could, run, pass, and that guy could get out in space and ultimately be a check down for Jameis Winston, which he's never had in his career. I think if you get the running back in there and you solidify a guy who can catch passes out of the backfield, you'll turn down Jameis Winston's turnover factor almost in half, which I think should be their biggest concern. I think you have to bring Jameis back because if he goes somewhere else and he absolutely dominates, you look like the biggest idiots in the room.
Yeah.
Which I think there's potential that could happen. So, Patriots squeak by the Bills and win their 11th straight AFC East title. That is absolutely insane to say. And with a win over Miami this week, they will clinch a first-round bye. Kind of funny to say because everybody's been dogging the Patriots all season. They're an ugly team. But are we done doubting the Patriots to get the job done when it matters most?
I mean, they played really, really well on Saturday. But I started making sense about this offense because, it's one good game. But you know how good game yesterday? Daniel Jones, 65 touchdown passes.
Yes. Teams
just have good games, and they built up a good defense. They didn't play that great. Ultimately, I think that the Patriots play a team like the Chiefs or the Ravens that is really well coached. They will lose that game because they're not from a coaching perspective, but because they're outmatched in talent.
If this was your typical AFC kind of year, I would definitely say that I wouldn't have very many concerns. But like the last month or so for the Chiefs, their defense has been really impressive, and then Lamar Jackson, I don't know how you game plan for a guy like that. I know they lost Mark Ingram, but a lot of their pieces are still intact. They still have most of their Pro Bowlers there. And the thing is, the Patriots do not have home field advantage throughout the entire playoffs anymore. So going to Baltimore to beat a game or to beat a team that's really impressive so far, they look like they fixed some things. But just to say that they have no concerns now, I don't agree with that.
Yeah, I'm still concerned about the offense. The defense is going to take care of itself. And I don't know if I've ever really doubted the Patriots because realistically, with a defense this good, all you need is Tom Brady to basically pull it together for 3 drives. And you're going to get that in the playoffs from Tom Brady every single week. 3 good drives, you get your 21 points, and you're going to be able to keep the other team off the field. And then the defense is obviously going to force a turnover at some point, either get you 3 or 6. So they're
special
going to be fine.
Too.
Yes, in special teams, they block a punt almost every week, and I love that they don't even put a return man back there. I think that's something we're going to see more and more with the amount of teams not being able to get return touchdowns. You have a better chance to block it and get a touchdown. So I'm not concerned with the Patriots if they happen to play, let's say, the Ravens. But if you play the Chiefs defense is looking great. Over the last 3 or 4 weeks, they've been the number 1 defense in the NFL. So I think they're going to be able to match up well with the Patriots. But I'm never going to count this team out. Once it hits December, once we roll into January, that's when Tom Brady's always been able to dial back the clock, even though no matter how bad he's looked, they get the job done. So I'm not going to ever turn my back on the Patriots and say that they're toast.
That special teams thing, though, is pretty interesting because, if they do get 3 good drives, you're right, that's 21 points. But then they get 1 or 2 possessions that are short field. That's an extra 7 points or at least a field goal, hopefully. So that's an interesting strategy that he's going with. I think it shows more that he's not so bought in on that offense.
No, I agree with that. And, it takes a lot for a guy to basically just walk out there and say, listen, we know we're beat on offense.
Yeah.
And we have a Hall of Fame quarterback.
Yeah.
So we're going to do everything we have to do on the defensive side of the ball to get the job done. And, Bill Belichick, obviously a smart guy, and he's doing what he needs to be successful in these situations. Next up, 49ers. End up beating the Rams with a walk-off field goal. It seems like the Rams' Super Bowl appearance was basically a decade ago with how bad they've looked and kind of, Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde all season. They're eliminated from the playoffs now since they lost to the 49ers. Where do the Rams go in this offseason? Because they don't have any picks in the first round for the foreseeable future. What direction do they need to head?
Dude, they're fucked.
They're toast.
They're paying Todd Gurley a shit ton of money. He's arthritis in his knee. Jared Goff, they didn't have a big contract ever, and he would do Jared Goff again this season. I found the Rams, I don't know what you do. You have to just liquidate your assets you have left, try to bring in new pieces that Sean McVay likes and can make things work for him. But Sean McVay basically had to be Bill Belichick next season for them to have a chance to win that division, because the 49ers and Seahawks aren't going to get any worse next year either. Because both young defense, both young and offense, they'll be back. The Rams have to be better at a standpoint from next season. I don't see how that can happen, but the money is where it is.
Yeah, I don't see why you pay Todd Gurley a year early like that. There's no incentive to do so. And then you pay Jared Goff, you pay Brandon Cooks. If you fucking wind up keeping Jalen Ramsey, you're going to have to pay him. That's so much money tied up in just a handful of guys that really just play on the perimeter the whole time. They got to go in the draft and get another running back, because Todd Gurley, for the life of this contract, he is going to be so bad. At some point, you're just going to have to cut him and then take your losses with it. But yeah, they're definitely stuck between a rock and a tight spot, and that's because they were doing things that weren't really sustainable.
No, and even what they did throughout the season, it's not sustainable. You can't go out there and trade just first-round draft picks willy-nilly like this, and then you go out and you get a guy, which this trade made absolutely no sense at the time, and it's making less sense now. Jalen Ramsey, in his post-game interview after the loss to the 49ers, he said that basically took all the responsibility off of himself for the guy getting down the field and burning him for like a 60-yard catch, which ended up leading to the field goal. He said, well, I turned around and I saw that my safety wasn't there, so it looked like I got burnt, so I had to run all the way back there. I played my zone responsibility, and the other guy wasn't there. That guy's Eric Weddle. That's a guy who's highly respected in the locker room, and, kind of the heart and soul, leader of the defense, and you've been there for 5 weeks now, and you're calling out those kind of players. That's definitely not a good look, and you're locked into that guy now. I don't understand where this team goes from here. They tried to put a Band-Aid on things. It didn't work. They're not bringing in the kind of guys that are going to be you need to be successful for longevity. This is going to be bad. I think that the Rams are going to be toast for a while, and, we might run into a spot where, hey, we're calling for Sean McVay to be fired in a situation where he shouldn't be getting fired, and you got to look at the upper management who's bringing players in and sending players out, because you have Brandon Cooks, who is basically non-factor all season. You tied a ton of money into Goff and Gurley, all non-factors. Your best players were guys who did not get paid at all. And really, the only bright spot of the offense this year was Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods. Yeah. And they're the least paid guys on the offensive side of the ball. Definitely not good. So we'll wait and get to the 49ers here in just a little bit. So we'll go ahead and talk about the Saints. Saints win a huge high-scoring game in the Music City. Huge game from Breeze, huge game from Kamara, huge game from Thomas. I mean, this looked like an all-time Saints in the Dome offensive team. Defense did allow 28 points. But with the 49ers and the Saints both winning huge games this weekend, who do you give the edge to in the playoffs, knowing that the playoffs are just 1 week away?
I'm going to go with the Saints, and just because of the experience. I do think the 49ers have a better defense. The offense is also very, very good, but I have faith in Jimmy Garoppolo to get it done when it matters most. If the offense can't run the football with one of those 5-6 dozen running backs it has, it doesn't look all that great, and Drew Brees got fucked at Super Bowl last year. Run again this year. Thomas had a legendary season, had 145 catches through 15 games. Kamara's looking good later on in the season. I think Saints look much better for 49ers right now.
Yeah, I don't know what the deal is, but Tannehill, since he's taken over there in Tennessee, has just been playing like lights out pretty much. But really, I took away more from that game with the Saints just because they got down early. I mean, they came back. They managed to win a high-scoring game, like you said. It just shows me the Saints can go on the road and win in a couple different ways, which is what you need in the playoffs. And so when you have them matched up against San Francisco, I take the Saints just for what Leighton said. Drew Brees has been there. Sean Payton has been there. They have so much talent. I can't remember their GM's name, but he is just aced the last 3 or 4 drafts entirely. I think their defense is going to bounce back. When teams get embarrassed like that, they always have a big bounce back game. And then especially gearing up for the playoffs, I think that team is well coached and will be ready. So I got to side with the Saints on this one, even though I think the 49ers are playing relatively well, have a good defense, and then have a smart head coach as well. Yeah,
I have to give it to the Saints as well here. You look at the 49ers, the identity of this team the first 8 weeks of the season was that this team could stop anybody on any given day. Mm-hmm. That's not been the case. Their last 8 games, they've held their opponent to less than 20 points one time, and that was that terrible game that the Packers tried to throw out there, and the 49ers just absolutely routed them. They were a 500 team in their last 6 games coming into this week. You look at this team in the last 7 weeks, they are now 4-3. That does not smell like you are peaking at the right time. This is a team that brought a lot of stuff to the table early in the season that a lot of people hadn't seen offensively, and they were able to basically hold the ball, keep the ball away from you, and then defensively, they would step up. And, obviously, if you limit the other team's possessions, they score less points. That's not the case anymore. This team defensively has been a shell of themselves, and you even look at against the Rams, like the Rams were able to have success on offense. We've seen the Rams just absolutely get dismantled. Like the Rams didn't get any better as the season went on, and you look at what the 49ers did to them in their first matchup, where it looked like the Rams weren't even a team that could be contending to be 500 early in the season, and now the Rams are actually playing with them. I think the 49ers have a lot more questions going into the playoffs. If you'd have stopped the season 8 weeks in, you're like, yep, 49ers best team in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Nobody can score on this defense. Now everybody's scoring on this defense, and you look at what is happening with the Saints. They're peaking at the right time. Drew Brees has looked better in the last 3 games than he has in the last 3 years at any stretch. So you have to love that. I honestly think that the injury to Drew Brees was a blessing in disguise. You get the old quarterback who gets basically a 3-week hiatus in the middle of the season to just rehab and get stronger. This team's peaking at the right time. I think the Saints they're the favorite in my eyes in the NFC, and that team is going to be hard to beat. So Eagles beat the Cowboys. And with a win against the Giants this week, they will win the NFC East. This was a very weird game, 17-9, very odd scoring. Obviously the Cowboys didn't score any touchdowns. You had Jerry Jones leave the game early. I actually didn't see that. Was he just out of his booth or what?
So right after that incomplete pass on 4th down, a minute and a half left. The game was not over yet from a time perspective because they had 3 timeouts. They go to Jerry Jones' box, and you see him back of his head walking out the door.
Wow. That's something that I honestly haven't seen, and you've seen a lot of Cowboys disappointment over the years. Is Jason Garrett done in Dallas?
Man, he has to be. He's been on the hot seat.
He won't be.
He's been on the hot seat for longer than I can possibly remember. I don't see how being back from this. But the Cowboys, you can't hire Kellen Moore, the head coach. Which I know that's going to happen if he gets fired.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I have to bring to the table here is that, okay, what are they going to do? Who are you going to hire? If you fire Jason Garrett, you can't hire Kellen Moore. Because Kellen Moore is the guy who's calling the plays, and the play calling has been terrible.
You watch him call plays like shit for the past 6 weeks, it seems like.
Yeah, Jerry Jones, in my opinion, is a very slimy guy. I think this is going to be one of those situations that if he has that next hire lined up, like Urban Meyer, it's got to be a big splash hire. Either Urban Meyer or Lincoln Riley is the guys that I kind of expect to head that way. If he gets one of those guys lined up, Jason Garrett will be gone. But if he doesn't get one of those guys lined up and basically signed on the dotted line, I don't think Garrett will be gone. Because where else do you go from here?
I have one more guy for you.
Who?
So, they pay coaches whether they got to pay him. Not going to salary cap at all. Jim Harbaugh.
Ooh.
You make it $15 million a year.
Yeah.
Bring Jim in. He started to Kaepernick. Kaepernick never seen after you left.
Yep. No, I absolutely agree with that. That would be a good hire for them. Fletcher, do you think Jason Garrett is gone?
Jerry Jones told you a few years ago that he was done with Jason Garrett. He said people were calling for his job, and his response was, if we fired Jason Garrett, he would be the number 1 coaching candidate on the market. If we fired him. And this is a few years ago, but the thing is, he told you right there, hey, we would get rid of him if there was a better guy there. Mm-hmm. He's not saying Jason Garrett's my guy. He told you if there was somebody better, we would go out and get him. I think what you have to do is, Leighton, you talked about it, you have to swing big on the coaching staff big time. I think you have to look at Urban Meyer, Lincoln Riley, but it doesn't just stop there. If I was Jerry Jones, I would try to get Lincoln Riley or Urban. But then I would also swing big and pay extra to get Ron Rivera as my defensive coordinator as well. Bring him over since he got fired. I feel like a good coach in there can really just kind of change things. Because I look at this team on paper, I'm like, they got plenty of talent on both sides of the ball. But I don't think Jason Garrett's the guy. And I think Jerry's going to try to swing big on a couple different coaches at a couple different spots on his coaching staff too.
Yeah, I think this year more than any, we have guys who are not coaching in the NFL who are probably better coaches than half the league.
Well, the thing is, they're using such a college style offense now because these NFL linemen, there's so many restrictions about practice and all that shit. Like, the linemen aren't developing that well. That's why, like, a guy like Quentin Nelson for the Colts, who's like 23 already this good, like, that's such a value. But a mobile quarterback is needed because that line play is not so good anymore.
No, I absolutely agree, and that's why we're seeing the swing to everybody that's successful has a mobile quarterback. Yep. Almost every single team in the playoffs. So, guys, what do you think happens with Dak at the end of this season? Do you think that this is a guy that is a legitimate quarterback that is going to, a legitimate franchise quarterback, or do you think this is just another guy who is surrounded by a good offensive line, a great running back, good wide receiving core, or is he a franchise quarterback?
I do think he's the former there. I think he's surrounded by a really, really, really good talent. But ultimately, switching in Wentz, I think he also gets franchise tag, bringing a new head coach. And you might want to tag him to see what that new head coach does with him, because what happens if he's amazing? And then you can sign for a contract then. Or what happens if you sign for a contract right now, and he's the same Dak next season, and the same shit happens?
So, I mean, Dak got drafted late. He got drafted like the 3rd or 4th round or whatever. And a lot of those guys, you see it with Lamar, like guys who slide in the draft don't go early like Baker and Darnold and Kyler Murray. They slide in the draft, they go to a better team, so they have, better offensive players like you just talked about. Lamar is the epitome of that. But you slide in the draft, so you go to a good situation. Like, that's kind of what happened there with Dak, and you're going to need good players around you. What I think is actually going to happen this offseason is, like, the Cowboys offered at like 32 or 3 million or 30 million, something like that, and Dak was wanting more. He said no, took the gamble on himself. I think the Cowboys are going to come out and say, listen, for what you did this year, for what you did that must-win game against the fucking Eagles, we're going to offer you like 20, 25 million. There's not going to be any movement from either side. There's going to be a franchise tag, and I think they're going to run that franchise tag kind of like they did with Kirk Cousins in Washington and just tap it out until you can't anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's a smart move, especially if you make a coach change. That can change everything for your quarterback. So I think you have to franchise tag him. I don't think you can sign him long-term, because if you sign him long-term now and then you bring in a coach that you 100% believe in, but he can't work with Dak Prescott, then it's kind of working against each other. Yeah. The franchise tag was made for this situation right here, where you have a ton of talent and you're paying a lot of guys, and you have to find room to kind of extend this out before you just lump a ton of contracts together. You go ahead and you tag him. You give him one run with a head coach. You might even franchise tag him twice. Mm-hmm. Give him 2 seasons with a new head coach, and if it works out after year 1 and you buy in, you can go ahead and sign him, or you just, like Fletcher said, tag him twice like a Kirk Cousins situation. I think that's the smartest thing. I don't think you just pile in all this money, because now you're looking at a running back, wide receiver that's getting paid handsomely. Then you go ahead and pay a quarterback. Now you are basically the Rams part 2. Mm-hmm. So, guys, Eagles, obviously, huge statement win. Did it without 3 of their top leading wide receivers. How good do you legitimately think that the Eagles are?
I don't think they're that good of a team.
No.
Like, the Cowboys defense ranked 22nd in DVOA, which I don't know if by the metrics, but that's not good. And then, like I said, they didn't have Jeffrey and Ultra Hood last in the game. That Miles Sanders, who's been
no D-Jax,
amazing. No Deshaun Jackson. But that's not a good thing. They won the game still, but that's not saying that they're a good team. They're hurt. And so I don't think they're a good team. Yesterday, the Cowboys had 6 drop passes. They had a fumble that untimely. They just didn't play good at all, and only lost the game by 8. Eagles are not a big football team. I don't think they'll be past a wild card game because they're going to play the Seahawks to a team like that.
They show that their front 7 is pretty damn good still. But they're rolling out so many practice squad guys. There's a reason why, Dallas Goedert has gotten so much attention from a fantasy tight end standpoint, is because they just got to roll guys out there who can catch passes, and that's kind of what happened. You saw him make a couple big catches, but Ertz went down. I learned more about Carson Wentz this game. Like, I am a firm believer in Carson Wentz, and I kind of have been for a while, and that game just showed it to me. I mean, he had, like, us 3 out there catching passes for him, and they still win the game somehow. Yes, it was ugly, but his completion percentage was good. He had a good number of yards, no turnovers, a touchdown. I learned more about Carson Wentz than the rest of the Eagles. I don't believe in the Eagles at all. I think they're done the first round of the playoffs, assuming they make it there.
Yeah, you look at this defense. Obviously, they are terrible against the pass. Like, their secondary is basically
trash.
They've given up 10 100-yard receivers this year against them, and that's a lot, especially whenever you think about you were playing 4 games against either the Giants or the Redskins. So definitely not a good look for that secondary there. But if you look at the rest of the team's serviceable. I mean, obviously you have Carson Wentz, and at this point, he is surrounded by B- talent, or probably C- talent, outside of Zach Ertz. Yes, Miles Sanders has looked good, just about as good as we've seen any real rookie running back. But he can't continue to just take this workload on like that. They're going to have to get Jordan Howard back for the playoffs. And a wide receiver, somebody has to be healthy.
Yeah.
Somebody has to be healthy. Greg Ward is a transitioned quarterback, just like 2 years ago from Houston. I mean, he's doing fine in the spot that he's in now. Carson Wentz is making him look phenomenal. But realistically, you can't go up against a team like the 49ers and expect to get big production out of a guy like Greg Ward. Like, they could play the Saints, legitimately. They could play the Saints in the playoffs, and it'll be Marshawn Lattimore lined up on Greg Ward.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to accomplish there? That's not going to work out. A lot of the teams in the NFC are good against the run. The Eagles have to be able to run the ball to be successful. The only running back in the backfield that's even average at this point is Miles Sanders. Whenever you have Jordan Howard out, there's a ton of questions around this team. The only thing that I don't question, which is the most important thing, is Carson Wentz. Carson Wentz is a great quarterback. Now, honestly, this is a team that beat the Packers early on in the season, so I could see them winning one game in the playoffs. But to go into the Dome, they don't stand a chance. To go up against the 12th man, they don't stand a chance.
No.
Like, they have no chance of winning the NFC. And I think that I feel most confident about saying that about the Eagles than any other team that could possibly make the playoffs in the NFC.
People have talked about like how Carson Wentz has just been checking the ball down, but like he has no deep threat, and then he has no wide receiver who can get any separation outside of Zach Ertz, and then you just double team him, and so you just rely on these 3 practice squad wide receivers who have been called up. Like, he has to check it down. He has to get rid of it early because nobody's going to do anything on the outside. So,
the longer he holds the ball, the longer he's going to be in trouble because nobody's going to beat these guys after a second and a half.
Yeah. I think you got to do a lot of play action with him and run the ball and then just pray somebody falls down at some point.
Just pray Jordan Howard's healthy so you can just run the ball between him and Miles Sanders, 40 times. So, last up, we'll hit on the AFC real quick. The Titans, the Steelers, and I cannot believe I'm saying this, the Raiders are even in playoff contention here, all fighting for one spot. Who gets in?
I'm going to go with the Titans because they play the Texans, who have nothing more to play for, have everything to play for, and they're fucking high football team for a shit ton of points. They're humming. They're going to win that game. They'll be in the playoffs.
Fucking Ryan Tannehill has the keys to the kingdom right now. That dude he's just unlocked the fucking treasure chest for the Titans.
Dude, these last 8 games that he's played, he's been the best quarterback in franchise history.
Yeah, he's been lights out. It's been insane. So that's another guy. I would definitely franchise tag him. I'm not sure I'd want to give him a long-term deal, but they're my favorites just because that defense isn't bad. They have an okay offensive line. They have a quarterback who can throw it and run it. Like, I don't know how things have clicked so perfectly for them, but they absolutely have. So the Titans for me, and it's not really even a question.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the Titans are going to go and beat the Texans. Leighton said it best. This team has everything to play for. The Texans don't have anything to play for. And what the Titans did last week was the smartest thing I've seen a football team do in a long time. You rest Derrick Henry.
Yeah.
You rest the beast for a week. Now he's going to come in healthy.
People were referring to him as the beast, though.
Yeah.
Dude, I told you what his nickname is. It's like Spanish for tractor, like little tractor.
I can't remember.
Which is like the funniest thing in the world. But yes, you rest the beast. He'll be back. I legitimately think that the Titans are a team. If they win this week, which I think they will, and I think they're going to do it pretty convincingly, this is a team that I would not be surprised if they went ahead and cruised the AFC Championship.
I want to say one thing about the Raiders real quick. They have to have 10 different things happen for them to make it to the playoffs.
They already had 5 happen.
So they need the Steelers loss versus the Jets. That happened. Colts win versus the Panthers. That happened. The Browns lose one of their 2 last games. That's happened. Titans loss versus the Saints. That happened. They got really lucky there. Raiders win versus the Chargers. That was basically a home game for the Raiders, though. And then, so they need Chicago, Detroit, or the Chargers, or New England to win their last week.
New England will win.
Raiders have to win versus the Broncos. Steelers have to lose versus the Ravens. Titans have to lose versus the Texans, and then the Colts have to beat the Jaguars. They already have 5 of those things happening. I don't see. I think that's like all their luck they just used up right there.
Yeah, no, and if the Raiders get in, that'll be an absolute bloodbath, whoever they play first round. I hope it's the Titans because I think they have a chance. I legitimately say that this team has a chance, and I want to see the best teams in. So, latency. It is time to play darts. Staple of the show. What is our dart game today?
We haven't played this game in probably over a year, like at least a year.
All right. Bring it
But
back.
we stopped doing it because we ran out of options. But you know what? We changed people a little bit probably. So bring back, is it a sport?
Is it a sport? Okay.
my God.
So the way that this will work, we will throw a dart at the dartboard. Each number on the dartboard represents a different activity or sport, and we will discuss whether or not it is a sport. And in order to be a sport, it will have to get a 2-to-1 vote. All right, Leighton C, your throw, and we have a 14.
A 14 is table tennis.
Ping pong.
Ping pong, essentially, yes.
Is it a sport?
So, ping pong. Professionally, ping pong, that's just fucking wild. Look at it all over the place. They're hitting that ball back and forth, probably 15, 20 miles an hour, each other, diving all over the place. Takes hand coordination, takes athleticism, takes balance. I am leaning towards it's a sport.
Just I might agree with you, but when you say it takes athleticism, what athleticism do you think it takes?
The ability-
Don't tell me hand-eye coordination, because that's
The
not
ability,
athleticism.
the ability to shuffle back and forth very quickly.
shuffle where though?
You can tape your feet to the floor and still play table tennis successfully.
Dude, you've seen these guys dive. Dude, they're hitting the ball at insane angles.
Yeah, just
you gotta get out there.
Just because they're good at it doesn't justify it as a sport.
Well, here's the thing. Like, what if you get one tall ping pong player like me who could just, with one step, cover
Hashtag
the
humble
table
brag.
and then 3 feet past the table? You know what I mean? Like,
Maybe you missed the calling as being a professional table tennis
Yeah.
player.
yeah. Well, I
You
never got
influence
that call.
So you think it's a sport?
I'm gonna go with this is sport.
I agree. I think it is a sport. We've done table tennis tournaments. I've watched that crazy shit on the internet. I don't know really what in the way of athleticism it actually takes, because some of those dudes look like when they're done playing table tennis, they fucking sit in their grandma's basement with their drawers on, fucking Mom, more Mountain Dew, stuff like that. But like,
Mom, meatloaf.
I think that is a sport. For what reason though? I can't explain. It's hard. It's like tennis, but just miniature. I don't know.
Okay, serious question here. Is golf a sport?
It's you know what, when you if you're gonna use the premise that guys like John Daly who can just drink and smoke all day long and play, like,
Is golf a sport? Yes or no? Just off the top, yes or no? Top of your
Yeah.
head.
Yeah.
I think it is. Okay. Is mini golf a sport?
No.
Okay. For that same reason here, I'm going to say that it
But
is
the
not
thing
a
is,
sport.
with mini golf, it's so much easier than regular golf. Like, table tennis is still hard.
Yeah,
but it's easier than tennis.
But
Well, just because it's easier than tennis,
Yeah,
doesn't
it's different, yeah.
Tennis requires actual athleticism, but
I'm going to say it's not a sport just for that simple reason. Just because it is the miniature version of something like baseball, probably a sport. Wiffle ball, probably not a sport. Anytime that we just,
I think wiffle ball is still a sport.
anytime we dumb down a sport to make it easier on people, I don't think you can classify it as a sport at that point.
I
I don't know if it makes it
dumbing
easier.
down. It's a whole
It
different
just
game. though.
requires less physical exertion.
Yeah, like this is a whole different game than normal tennis. They
This
have
is
to
like
have
basketball and shooting
the same
free throws.
rules.
Do you
No.
think 3-on-3 is a sport?
The big three is, but 3-on-3 is not.
3-on-3 is not a sport.
I'm making very hairline fucking divisions right now within the sport.
As long as you throw in Ice Cube in a 4-point circle, I'm all in.
See, here's the thing, though. It's fewer guys, and they only play half court. It's smaller,
Yeah. No, I can't say table tennis is a sport, but it seems like I'm outvoted. So table tennis, I guess, is getting voted in as a sport.
Let's put it on the board.
Next
On the
up,
board.
Fletch, your throw, and we have a 6.
A 6 is water polo.
Is water polo a sport?
Yeah, water polo for me is a sport because there's no way I could tread water that long. Like, if I'm going to start... I play basketball and, like, volleyball and shit like that in the pool, and if I can't touch the bottom, I don't play those games. So the fact that you can swimming competitively is a sport. The fact that you can swim and fucking throw a ball and roll around... I don't know if they tackle each other or hit each other. I don't know how you do that swimming
They
in
drown
water.
each other.
Well, if you got to throw a ball through a hoop or into a goal, it's basically dodgeball, soccer, and swimming combined. So, yeah, it's not even a question. It's a sport.
Yeah, definitely a sport. And the fact that they can swim and jump out of the water without touching the ground, like
Yeah,
that.
where do
like
you get the
how?
momentum from?
Like how? Yeah, it's like they're all Jedis in there.
Yeah, and I think that this is one of the.
Is being a Jedi, is that a sport?
No, it's a gift.
This is one of those.
It's a feeling.
This is one of those rare things where
Flows
just
through
because it doesn't matter how athletic you are either good at this or you're not. Like, you can't take an athlete that's like a basketball player, football player, baseball player. Any of these guys are like a track runner. Like, you can't take any athlete and just throw them in there and say that they're going to be good at that. This takes a very specific set of skills. And in fact, you could honestly, somebody could give me the argument that this is the hardest sport in the world, and I would actually
would be
listen
for
to
me.
them. Yes, and I would actually listen to him.
I can't tread water that long.
I don't know how long these games are, but if you're in a pool for longer,
Fucking long.
yes, if you're in
It's
the
not even
pool,
15 minutes too long.
yeah, you can't tread water for 10 minutes unless you are like in very, very, very great shape. This absolutely has to be a sport, and I would honestly listen to an argument of somebody telling me that this is the hardest sport in the world.
Well.
So for that simple reason, it has to be a
This
sport.
is a game that if you were like drinking by the pool and you tried to play it with your buddies, your buzz would just evaporate in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah.
You could drive home afterwards.
Somebody might be
not fun
floating.
time playing
Yeah,
that game.
seriously. My God, that would be awful.
Yeah, definitely a sport.
Doesn't even look fun.
No, it does not. It looks miserable.
miserable.
Yes, would not be fun to play. And it's one of the rare sports I say that would not be fun to play. Like even a swimming competition, if you just swim against somebody, that's fun. Treading water for an hour and a half and throwing a ball at a hoop, no, not for me.
But how many people, gammon people, no, yeah.
Not definitely a sport.
Is dunking
though.
allowed in ball polo? Probably not.
It can't be.
Actually, you can't dunk people.
Yeah, no, that'd be
Actually, you can't dunk people.
Dude, could you imagine?
No, the pool.
You know how you like in football you have like a gunner on the kickoff team. Could you imagine if in water polo there was a gunner who just swam underneath the
Yeah,
water?
put a gun in the
He
water.
just keeps grabbing everybody's ankles and yanking them underwater.
In soccer, like if you get subbed out, you can't get subbed back in. Like that doesn't work that way. I don't know if it works that way for water polo, but if you can't get subbed out to get a rest and then come back in, you are one dead man floating. If
No.
that's the case.
You are the man. So definitely a sport. Okay, last up, my throw, and we have a 16.
Speaking of mini sports, kickball.
Ooh,
What is this a mini sport of?
I don't know. I guess like baseball or something.
It's not a mini sport of anything. Kickball is its own thing. It's definitely not a sport. This is an activity. This is a playground activity. You can't say the fourth square is a sport. You can't say,
I played basketball on the playground.
yeah, but this is like the
Well,
only
it's not a
place.
sport. That's a 3-on-3 is not a sport. We know this.
Well, I mean, okay, so like basketball, like obviously, like a playground isn't the only place you're going to see it. Kickball, a playground is just about the only place you're going to see a kickball game pop up. Kickball's fun, great time. I don't think it's a sport though.
I also not think it is a sport because people who aren't like that athletic, they haven't been kicking ball really well, really good at this game.
Yeah.
So just for that reason, it's not a sport.
So having a specific technique for it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's what we said for water polo. Like, you can't just take, Usain Bolt and throw him in a pool and be, hey, you're good at water polo now.
It's true.
That's true.
It's definitely not a sport.
Not a sport.
I'm going to say it is a sport, but even as I say it is a sport, I can imagine somebody's argument is that they got, there's some fat-ass dude who just plays like left field but can just launch the fuck out of a kickball
Yeah,
off his
dude,
foot.
no, they play like beer kickball leagues, and like I'm pretty sure that like you have to have a beer in your hand the whole time while you play. So like I feel like that's not a sport. Like even golf, like people drink during golf,
Yeah.
but you still have to set it down at some point to be successful at the game.
Yeah, I don't consider slow pitch softball a sport just because of the environment of it. And if that's kind of the same way they treat kickball, then
Yeah,
I still think it's a sport though, and because I'm sure that there are people who play it very competitively with no.
Oh, people
No
play
beer.
competitive slow pitch softball. Believe me, I've seen them.
Yeah, well, I don't know though. I know they do. I still say it's a sport. It's a mix of baseball and soccer.
Not for me. Definitely not for me. Just because you
You said
said
no?
just
I said no.
just because you said soccer, I'm definitely saying it's not a sport now.
Soccer for what do you call it?
All right, so just a little recap. Water polo is a sport. Table tennis is a sport. And kickball is not a sport. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about NCAA football, guys. We actually have a good game on this Saturday outside of the college football playoff. We have Memphis versus Penn State. Penn State is a 7-point favorite. Memphis will be without their coach. He is heading to Florida State. Guys, who's going to win this game?
It's super weird to me that people take jobs like this before the bowl game. Like, why not just wait?
He should have to sit a year out. That coach.
Like, why not just wait?
Oh, yes, he should. I agree with that.
But why wait like another couple of weeks? Because the job's not going
And
anywhere.
I guarantee that coach has an agent.
Yeah, and you know what? That coach should either have to go coach at JUCO for a year, or he has to go. He just has to sit out.
Sit out, yeah.
Red shirt coach.
You can walk the sidelines, but you can't.
Oh
make
no
any
no no
plays.
no! We just ruined the Cowboys, dude. They're gonna get a red shirt coach in there for sure.
Probably.
Right. But I'm going to go with Penn State. Memphis has basically made me a liar all year long, picking against I think basically everything we could. I
I
think.
bet against Memphis almost every week, and
But
they've
they
lost
always
like one
win.
game.
But this is the week. Penn State will beat Memphis.
It's coming.
It's going to happen. Penn
Leighton has
State,
the foresight. He's calling.
Penn State's beating Memphis.
I think Penn State will win. I mean, Penn State was kind of flirting for a playoff spot for a while there. And to be totally honest with you, I can't tell you a whole lot about Memphis outside of their basketball team. So Penn State's still it for me.
Yeah, I think I'm going to have to go with Penn State. I just want to know who's playing in this game and who's not. I cannot remember his name. I think he's number 99, Penn State, edge rusher, and he's a beast. Like he causes havoc against good Big Ten teams. He caused havoc against Ohio State. If he plays in this game, I think this game's going to be over for Memphis. Like they haven't seen anything like that. Maybe in the whole entire history of Memphis football. So I think Penn State, just the more athletic team. Obviously, they have the head coach advantage with Franklin. Penn State's going to get this job done. Even if Penn State sits all their guys that are going to be going into the NFL draft, I still think Penn State has enough to take care of Memphis.
That's okay for that coach to leave, but how dare that a player even think about sitting out?
No, I definitely agree with you there.
Run him out of town.
Yep, get rid of the player. He needs to go play JUCO for a year or just sit out.
Go to jail.
Unless he enters the transfer portal. Then he's fair.
That's okay. These rules matter.
Yeah, these rules definitely matter. So on to the college football playoff, guys. It is here. We are starting with number 4 Oklahoma versus number 1 LSU. LSU is a 13.5 point favorite. I think that says enough for all of us. But guys, who wins this game?
Yes, LSU. Oklahoma can score a lot of points, and they will this game. Probably LSU defense isn't that great. But LSU can score with anybody, and they are going to beat Oklahoma. But I don't know the cover of the spread. I think it can be closer than the spread says, but they will beat Oklahoma.
Yeah, so LSU has a bunch of guys out or several players out?
They have a guy smoke pot. They're out, and the running back out hurt in practice this past week.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I knew that Oklahoma's
down
down their starting safety, but defense doesn't matter for the Big 12
so much.
Hayden High School safety can play Oklahoma.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's a 13.5 point spread, and I'm sure that Oklahoma, I would be surprised if Oklahoma didn't cover the spread, but I don't know. I'm excited for these playoff matchups more than I ever have been, just because with Alabama, except for last year, I guess with Tua, they just roll out some C+ fucking quarterback that I don't really care about. All these teams have okay quarterbacks, very good quarterbacks actually, and I'm very excited to watch all of them. I think it's gonna sound crazy. I think Oklahoma could actually pull this out against LSU if they're that short manned and just maybe how things break during the game. But I think it's definitely going to be closer than what people think, and I'm going to go with the upset alert. I'm taking Oklahoma. Has there been a 1 seed win it all since so.
No, they haven't. Have they?
History's against them.
I'm going to say LSU wins this game, and here's the only stat I'm going to tell you on this, okay? Oklahoma, their last game that we saw them in, the opposing quarterback that started had 15 passing yards. The backups went 6 of 21, and the other team had 30 total rushing yards. That game was decided in overtime.
Yeah.
Oklahoma has not been the same team for about the last 5-6 weeks. Every game they've had to squeak out, and that's against Big 12 competition. LSU is a completely different beast. We're looking at a team that held Georgia football to 61 rushing yards, who averages almost 200 yards on the season. LSU put up 450 total yards of offense on Georgia. I think this game is going to be a rout. I expect LSU to jump on them early. The only thing that makes me question this is how is Joe Burrow going to respond after winning the Heisman. A lot of people, once they kind of get that, they get all the interviews after the Heisman. It is a very long process winning the Heisman Trophy. You have to go out to New York, and then after that you have to do about 500 interviews, and it's a lot of stress on the guy. But if he comes out, and we'll know in the first quarter whether or not Joe Burrow's still locked in, which I think he will be, I think LSU routs Oklahoma. Next up, we have Clemson. Number 3 team in the country taking on Ohio State. Number 2 team in the country. Ohio State is a 3.5 point dog. Who wins this game and why?
I'm with Ohio State. This is an absolute joke. Ohio State's the best team in the country. Yeah, Clemson had not had a game within 30 points. Is that right? Since
September.
Since September. But fuck. Ohio State could beat Wake Forest by 60 points. Ohio State beat Michigan by 30 points. Ohio State is the best team in the country. They're going to beat Clemson. It will be a good game, though, but Ohio State will win this game.
Yeah, this coach, I can't remember his name for Ohio State. Now, I'm not the biggest college football guy, but he is really just riding the gravy train that Urban Meyer has left for him. But those dudes are so good. as soon as I saw the spread on here, I thought it was a complete joke too, because I think Ohio State might be the best team in the country. So I think Ohio State's going to beat Clemson. Clemson has been underwhelming all year. Of course, they could always turn it around. I'm sure Dabo Swinney has his guys. Will have his guys just not only X's and O's ready to go, but from a mental standpoint, they will be so locked in. Like he has all the kind of bulletin board material in the world to paint for them, and they still have Trevor Lawrence. But with all that being said, I think Ohio State just has way too much talent left there, and I think Ohio State wins this game.
See, I'm actually going to pick Clemson in this game. You look at, everybody's been talking about how good the defense for Ohio State is. Clemson's the number one defense in the country right now. They're giving up 10 points per game. I don't care who you're playing. That's still super impressive. And we can't act like the Big Ten's is like this huge powerhouse this year. Like the Big Ten was better than what it used to be. But Ohio State hasn't looked that great in the last few weeks. Obviously, Clemson hasn't allowed a team to stay within 30 points since September. And you look at what Ohio State's done, they haven't beaten a team by 30 points since November 16th. And that was against Rutgers.
I mean, they beat Michigan by 29.
In Rutgers, is Michigan a good team?
I mean,
Michigan always loses that game to Ohio State.
Yeah, toward the end of the season, they were playing really good.
Rutgers scored 21 points on them. Rutgers scored 20 points 3 times this year. And Rutgers is absolutely terrible. Like, you can look at this and pick it away however you want, but I just don't think that, in a way, where two equally talented teams, which I think Clemson's actually more talented than Ohio State. Ohio State has more star power on the team. But you look at what they have. Clemson has on offense. You have Trevor Lawrence, who everybody is saying is the best quarterback in college football. And then you have Trevor Etienne. You have T. Higgins. Like, the team is very, very good. They just don't get the public notoriety that Ohio State has gotten all season. I think you give Dabo Swinney 3 weeks to prepare for this game. I think he's going to take care of business. I'm not 100% sure that, Day is going to be able to come in there and out-scheme Dabo Swinney. Dabo might be the best coach in college football. And we saw Clemson in this spot last year, and they ran through an Alabama team who's probably better than this Ohio State team. So I think Clemson's going to win this game, and it won't surprise me if Clemson wins this game by more than 2 scores. It won't surprise me one bit.
I'd be really talking about that. I mean, I like what you said about Clemson beating all these teams. They haven't, and they're a big football team. That is an insanely impressive thing that they've done this year, scoring wise.
Yeah, and everybody talks about
it. Ohio State, the Ohio State playing team like Michigan has been anything Clemson played all season long, and they've been by 29 points.
Did they play Minnesota this year?
Who?
Ohio State did not.
They did not. They're inside. But they played Wisconsin twice. They showed Wisconsin 2 times. Yeah. They beat Penn State.
Yeah, that's true.
And all these teams.
I wouldn't say that they dismantled Wisconsin. Wisconsin had the lead at halftime.
Well, they lost by 13 once, and they won the first time.
The first time, yes, Wisconsin got absolutely destroyed. The second game,
the second game was good for half of it. It was close. But I don't know. The way Ohio State's being the teams that are just so much better than the ACC teams, I think that they are just so much better than the Clemson. Not so better than Clemson. I think they have performed better than Clemson have performed for the competition they played.
Probably. That's why they got the 2 seed over the 3 seed. But I just think team versus team, I think Clemson's going to win this game. I trust Dabo Swinney in this spot. I trust Trevor Lawrence more than what I trust Justin Fields. I've only seen 1 season of Justin Fields. Trevor Lawrence answered the bell every single time. And they did have that close game against UNC, which is really, they've only had 2 games that were within 2 scores all season. And everybody said how Clemson underperformed. It's like, well, what did you want them to do? Beat every team by 60? They beat everybody by 30. They've taken care of business. Ohio State's good. Ohio State's very good. And, it won't surprise me if Ohio State wins this whole thing. But I'm just saying, I think Clemson takes care of business, and I think they even cover that spread. I think there's a reason. Vegas is never really that far off the wagon here. And everybody's been high on this Ohio State team. I think there's a reason why Clemson's a 2.5-point favorite in this game. I really do. All right, so shittiest take of the week, guys. So the way that this works, we watch a lot of sports television, listen to a lot of sports radio, and we bring in the worst take that we have heard of the week. Fletcher, what do you have for us?
So mine is the Kevin Garnett when, I guess, LeBron's last year in Cleveland. He was 25. The Celtics beat him in 6 or 7 games or whatever. And then Kevin Garnett said that they crushed LeBron. They ran him out of Cleveland. He couldn't beat their 5, which that sentence right there tells you all of it. But then he doubled down on it, went a step further, and said, when he went to Miami, that the NBA had an agenda, and that was why the Miami Heat beat them. So, first off, you have Ray Allen, Garnett, Paul Pierce. That's 3 Hall of Famers right there. Rondo at the time was a top 10 point guard. The league has changed since then. Rondo's had some injuries, so he's fallen off. But that was a really good team they had. And, I mean, LeBron was rolling out there with, like, Drew Gooden, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, old Shaq, old Ben Wallace. Like, he was rolling out there with nothing. There's a reason that guy actually left Cleveland. It had nothing to do with the players on the Boston Celtics.
Absolutely not.
And so, I mean, you can't fault the guy. Dan Gilbert really wasn't doing himself any favors. But then with the Miami thing, like, so the first year that LeBron was in Miami, he faltered in the finals. He fell down pretty much. But in that Eastern Conference Finals, when he guarded Derrick Rose shot like 30% from the field, and Derrick Rose was the MVP. People forget how, like, lockdown defender LeBron used to be back when he was younger. And then in the next year, when in the second round of the playoffs, I think it was the second round of the playoffs. Maybe it was the conference championship. I can't remember now. But in the playoffs, his second run in Miami, LeBron had, like, arguably his greatest game ever, where he had, like, 45, 15, and 7 or whatever in Game 6 at Boston when the Heat were down 3-2. The only agenda that was taking place is that Miami Heat and LeBron are just way better than anything that the Boston Celtics or anybody in the East could throw together at that time. So I completely disagree with his point altogether.
Oh, it's terrible. And you think about it, the way that he phrased it, I think that he could have been somewhere in the ballpark if he was like, okay, the reason why LeBron left and went to Miami is because he saw what we did and we had success with it, with teaming up with 2 superstars and building something like that. That I would live with. But to say that you broke LeBron James...
Yeah. Well, I could talk about this point forever. So, in the Western Conference Finals, one year, KG got the 1 seed, got bounced out of the first round, only made it out of the first round once ever in his time in Minnesota. I could sit here and say that Kobe, Shaq, and Tim Duncan, Manu, and Tony Parker fucking broke KG over and over and over. And he got traded. People always say, well, he got traded to Boston. Kevin Garnett had a no-trades clause. Like, he could have refused any trade he wanted. He found a trade that worked for him with a good team, obviously. So he said, okay, that'll work. Like, you could say the same thing about Kevin Garnett, so it's pointless to even hear that from me.
Yeah, Kobe needs to just come out and fire off and say, I broke Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, I broke Kevin Garnett over and over.
Latency, shittiest take of the week.
So actually I have 2. The second one came in like 2 minutes ago.
All right, this should be good.
Kyle Lowry had some fans in Indiana one time I could yell at him on the court. And it's really tight when they play being little fucking bitches about getting yelled at on the court. Like, if it's not homophobic or racial, just shut the fuck up. Like, if someone calls you a bitch and you're playing about, you're proving the point that you're a little bitch.
Yeah.
Like, just shut up, you're paying $1 million, you're on the court, do your job, get the fuck off, and go home.
Yeah, but do people yell at you while you're at work?
Yes.
They do?
Yeah.
Just like that?
Do people yell at you at the hospital?
Yes.
I get yelled at in both my jobs, so yeah, I can... I get paid a lot less than they do.
I mean, I don't even call a bitch at work, but I get yelled at to other people. Like,
speaking of which, Isaiah Thomas, I cannot believe he got suspended.
Did he really?
Well, he got suspended. He went up in the stands, though.
Yeah, you can't do that.
But, I mean, dude, he got suspended.
They have a very hard rule about that now because of the whole Malice at the Palace. Like, it's a zero tolerance
thing. But he handled himself well in that situation. Like, a lot of people get suspended for that same amount of time. If he would have walked up there and slugged the guy, like, or went up there and was like screaming at people,
well, if he slugged the guy, he spent probably longer than he was now.
But I mean, you get what I'm saying. I think last year, whenever there were guys on the court actually fighting, they got suspended for 2 games.
Yeah, I know. If they don't call you something racial or something homophobic, just get over it. Play basketball and shut up. But the real one goes to Darren Fanuc. This is not from sports; it's an entertainment one. He's a review guy from Entertainment Weekly.
Relate to this, no problem.
He reviewed The Witcher, which is a Netflix special. I've not watched it, but he gave it a score of 0. Like I said, haven't watched it yet. Not based on the score, but it's how he reviewed it. So he watched episode 1, and then in the review, direct quote.
They say it took too long to get going.
And because no one has time for Netflix drama's runtime, I skipped ahead to episode 5.
That's
what?
Yeah.
So he skipped episode 2, 3, and 4. Straight to 5 and gave us a 0. Like, that's a fucking complete joke. Like,
that's terrible.
Yeah.
Imagine going to work one day out of the 5 days of the week and getting paid full time. That's what he just did.
Yeah.
And he gave it a 0. That's awful.
No, that's terrible. I don't.
The story just wasn't adding up for me. I couldn't figure it out. Couldn't piece it together.
It seems like they just skipped right from 1 point all the way to like 4 points down the road. Well, probably because you skipped 4 shows.
My mom is real big into watching like crime kind of shows. Like, she likes The Sopranos a whole lot. Big into Breaking Bad. A lot of shows like that. And there's one show back in HBO from like the early 2000s called The Wire. And I'm like, you would like this one. It's about a Baltimore detective. He works homicide and works like drugs and narcotics and stuff. I'm like, you'll like it.
Great show.
We watched it. And like 15 minutes in, she's on her iPad doing whatever. Fuck it, we'll just change it. And she's like, well, what'd you do? I'm like, you're not even watching it. You're not even watching it. I'm going to watch what, I think there was an NBA game. It was like the Bucks and I'm like, I'm going to watch this because you're not watching the show. That's what we're doing. So, yeah, I hate when people do that. They're like, oh, it takes too long. Just give it a minute.
Give it 20 minutes.
Let things fucking bake for a second, man.
Give it episode 2. Give it a couple hours.
Yeah. No, that's not good. That's about how I treat shows, though, so I can't complain, really. So my take goes out to Skip Bayless. Every time Skip Bayless and his Cowboys lose, you always get free.
He's atrocious. He's awful.
Yes. So he gave Dak Prescott, for his performance on Sunday, a B letter grade, which basically, all the times that he says that Dak's this great quarterback, it just, takes away from that. Like, you have to stand up and say whenever the guy is not doing well, so then you at least have some kind of consistency for whenever the guy's good, he's good. Whenever he's bad, he's bad. Gave him a B letter grade. On this week, Dak Prescott threw the ball 44 times. He completed 56% of his passes, 0 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. His quarterback rating of the week was 74.5. Right now, before the Monday night games start, he is 29th in the NFL. So are you saying that there were 28 guys in the NFL that had a B plus or higher? That's not how this works. If you think about it, roughly right in the middle where you'd be at like the 15th guy in the NFL, 15th, 16th, that would probably be a C. You can't say that a guy threw the ball 44 times, didn't even complete 60% of his passes whenever a lot of guys in the NFL are completing 70% of their passes, 0 touchdowns, and he gets a B.
Yeah.
They didn't score a touchdown, they did not score a single touchdown in this whole entire game, and he still gets a B. Skip, you got to give it up, man.
Yeah.
This is absolutely terrible. You have to have some consistency. When they're good, go ahead, give them a B, give them an A. But when they're bad, you got to come out and you got to give it what it is. And honestly, 29th quarterback rating in the NFL, that's probably a D. Maybe even worse.
Probably an F. LeBron against the Pacers last week went for like 29-9, shot like 40% from the field. And like Broussard and Shannon gave him a D plus or something, and then Skip gave him an F. And it's like, yeah, because you hold him to a higher standard because it's LeBron. Like 29-9 for most guys shooting 40% from the field is probably a pretty good night, but not for LeBron. The same thing. Like if you think Dak's great, you can't suck that bad and then say, well, he didn't do that bad.
Yeah, so what happens whenever Dak Prescott goes out there and throws for, 65% completion percentage, 300 yards, and 2 touchdowns? What score is that? Is that an A++?
Yeah.
Terrible. Yeah. It's absolutely terrible. So let's go ahead and go to Fletch on the fly. So the way that this works is Leighton will give Fletch questions. He has no notes on this topics, have not heard the questions yet, and he will answer them as fit.
Okay, so we'll start with football. We'll go to basketball ones.
Okay.
Seeing how NFL drafts have gone the past several years, Tua is a lock to go in the top 5 in next year's NFL draft.
Top 5? Yeah, because here's the deal. He's not going to slide because the thing is, you've got teams out there. I can't think of a whole off the top of my head here, but like the San Diego Chargers, for instance, they could definitely trade up and get Tua. And
might not even have to, but they're going.
Well, they might not have to, but there are a lot of teams out there that's like, where we're at now, we might as well come off of him early rather than too late. Like we don't want to be saddled with him for too long, so like we'll just trade off our court. Dolphins, yeah.
They have one more year of Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or not Ryan Tannehill. They have one more year of Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Oh, yeah, I know. So, like, and even if, like, the Titans, like, what if the Titans don't feel comfortable with Tannehill and they don't want to franchise tag him? They could easily move up and get him. So, yeah, he's not going to slide. There's no way he goes past 10. 10 is the absolute basement, and then you dug a hole in the basement, went a little deeper. So, I think he's definitely going to go top 5.
I agree with that. Next one. Both these players, longer in college, but who do you want? NBA draft, top pick. James Wiseman, LaMelo Ball.
I think I take James Wiseman as much as I like LaMelo Ball. James Wiseman at 7'1" just moves so well. He has a standing reach of like 9'4". Can step out, hit shots. I know college basketball, like college football, their early games, they schedule dog shit, but he was averaging like 19, 11, 3.5 or something like that. So James Wiseman is definitely my guy. And the thing is, he is a guy who has a frame who can definitely add on more weight. This is probably awful to wish, but I hope that the Warriors get the number 1 overall pick and draft James Wiseman, and then get Curry and Clay and Draymond and all those dudes back. So that would just be hilarious.
That'd be unstoppable.
That would be so cool for me to see. But James Wiseman, I think, and I like LaMelo Ball a lot. I would take LaMelo if I was like, if I was like the Knicks, I would seriously consider taking LaMelo Ball 1 over James Wiseman, just because you have Mitchell Robinson, who is one of the top leaders in blocks in the NBA. You get a guy out there who can shoot it and then gets the ball to RJ Barrett and other guys in the wing. I would take LaMelo Ball 1 in that situation, but I think consensus-wise for me right now it is James Wiseman, especially if he works out and adds weight before the combine.
And our last question. This is an award that gets overlooked a whole lot, but right now in the NBA we got a lot of really good teams, really good records, and we got some teams that are surprising anybody. But right now, who is the NBA Coach of the Year?
NBA Coach of the Year? Oh, man. I mean, I'm not going to give it to Frank Vogel. I think the Lakers are playing beyond well, and I think that he deserves a shitload of credit. I'm not going to give it to Doc Rivers. I think in my mind right now there are probably two legitimate candidates. I mean, Boston's playing well, but they have a lot of pieces, a lot of young guys. I knew without question that once they got Kyrie Irving out of there, they had Kemba Walker, who's like, if Kyrie's an A+, Kemba's an A-, but he's also an adult. So, like, that's a huge deal. I'm not going to give it to Brad Stevens, not going to give it to Budenholzer. Like, they have a lot of talent, I think. I'm not going to give it to Brett Brown because I think they're pretty underachieving for the talent they have on their team. I think it comes down to really two guys, and people might think I'm a homer, but for the first one, I have Nate McMillan. They have almost as good as record as, I think they have a better record or better winning percentage than the Philadelphia 76ers. They have no Victor Oladipo. Brogdon looks like an all-star. Sabonis is a legitimate candidate for most improved player. But then Eric Spoelstra, no one saw the Heat coming like this. I criticized Jimmy Butler pretty hard. I thought he was not a winner. I thought he was just taking the money and the lifestyle in Miami. But what they've done down there is impressive. So I think it's Spo or it's Nate McMillan at this point.
Yeah, I agree with that. It is Spo. And that concludes Push on the Fly.
Not even going to consider Nate McMillan?
Nope.
Okay.
It's Spo.
Okay.
I don't know about that. I think that's like 50-50.
They missed Miles Turner also for like 2 weeks early in the year.
Yeah. I think that one's 50-50 because what you're working with, and I don't know. You have a lot of season to left.
Yeah.
I hope it's Nate McMillan. I think he deserves one. All right, so NCAA basketball. So the NCAA never really ceases to amaze us. You have the former number one recruit and potential number one pick in this NBA's draft, James Wiseman, decided that he wants to leave Memphis and is preparing for the NBA draft now. We have actually three NBA prospects that are ranked inside the top 5 now not playing college basketball. Guys, what are your thoughts on this situation? First on Wiseman, and we'll kind of talk about why, nobody's really playing. It seems like 3 of the top 5 guys are not in the NBA now.
You mean in the NCAA?
Or in the NCAA.
Yeah. So I mean, James Wiseman, when he the very first suspension or whatever he had where he was ruled ineligible, I would have just left then. I can't believe he stuck around as long as he did. So I can't say I blame him or I'm surprised that he's left now. I think it's really stupid by the NCAA. They better. And we're going to talk about this a little bit more when we talk about that in-season tournament and what that could become, because I have a couple different things about that. But the NCAA better really revisit its rules and what it's trying to put out there, because they're just hurting their own product right now. And the NCAA is a business. They are definitely concerned with making money, even though they don't want to give the players any. They need to relook at what they're doing because they're hurting their own product. Not having James Wiseman, your sport has already been relegated to 4 weeks of relevancy in the entire sports calendar.
Yes.
And you just lost a huge watching piece. This is potentially like losing, maybe like Zion from last year and what he did to the tournament. You could have had that same almost kind of effect with James Wiseman gone from the tournament now. It's even less relevant.
No, I absolutely agree. This was terrible for the NCAA. And the way that they handled this whole thing, they were like, okay, well, we're just going to come out and we're going to suspend him for a while, and then we're going to fine him $11,000. If this was a Division III basketball player who wasn't going to be making millions of dollars in a few weeks, you wouldn't be saying, okay, if you go ahead and give us the money, we'll just dust this all under the rug in 2 months.
Yeah.
That's absolutely terrible, and it's just going to create more people to not want to play for your company. This is terrible because people are going to see this and they're going to be like, well, I don't want to be, have any kind of violations against me. I'll just go overseas for a year, come back with, actual paycheck in my pocket from going overseas for a year, and then go in the NBA draft. And I think that if Wiseman ends up going high in the draft along with LaMelo Ball, and Hampton. So you have 3 guys going in the top 5 of the draft that did not really play college basketball.
Yeah.
I think that that's going to create a lot of doors for people to say, hey, you don't have to play college basketball.
Yeah.
You can do other things. And I think people are going to start doing that with the way that the NCAA is treating this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's ridiculous because how are you going to find... Essentially what James Wiseman is a volunteer because he's not getting paid. People want to say, oh, he gets paid with a scholarship and housing. No, he's an amateur. He's still has amateur status. He is not getting paid. So he's essentially a volunteer. You're taking a volunteer of a multi-billion-dollar corporation saying, it's essentially a nickel to them, but you're going to fine a volunteer $11,000. You don't pay the guy, so how can you fine the guy? That doesn't make any sense. And so if I was James Wiseman, just real quick talking about him, I would say, no, I'll never pay that $11,000 forever for the rest of my life. Like, I would never do that. You would have to garnish.
Principle.
Yeah, you would have to garnish my check from the NBA for me to get that $11,000. I would never pay it.
No, I absolutely agree with you.
Yeah, I agree with you guys. Instead of keep the big hole for itself, it's not going to figure it out.
No.
Like, they have...
The writing's been on the wall for like 10 years.
Yeah, it's like one of the things that people in the room are too old-fashioned to get with the times. Never going to happen until something changes drastically. Humongous change has to happen.
And the funny thing is that the NCAA will only, basically hold these guys to a huge standard once it's not out of their window to be successful. Like Fletcher said, if you look at the timetable of this suspension, he was going to come back right around the time that football's stopping and NCAA basketball becomes king again, right before the tournament, and people are tuning in to watch. Whenever we had speculations of people cheating in the past, like DeAndre Ayton, it was right as tournament time came out. They didn't do anything. It was right during the tournament. They weren't going to suspend a big piece of a team that a lot of people thought could win a national championship. They weren't going to do that. But since it's early in the season, they felt like they could go out, kind of put their foot in the sand, get this guy for a couple $1,000s, and then get him back so he can get the TV ratings up, and that way they can be king come March.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrible.
Well, R.J. Hampton, he said it way better than I ever could have thought to say it, but when he first said that he was a top 5 recruit, totally eligible as far as scores, test standards, all that stuff. He was ready to go. And he said, I'm going to go play with the New Zealand Breakers. And he signed a shoe deal with that Chinese company. And they said, well, what made you want to do that versus, go to college, play at a big program, all this and that? And he said, listen, my goal was to never play in college. My goal was to play professionally.
Yes.
And, even if he only gets paid, I know it's going to sound only, but, even if he only gets paid $100,000, that's way, way less than the league minimum for the NBA. That's still $100,000. That's 6 figures in your pocket at 18. You sign a shoe deal worth, over the life of the contract, you're assuming at least $1 to $2 million at least. That's money in your pocket right there. You already have some capital built up for yourself. You get exposed to the pro game early, and then you go into the draft and you make even more money. If I was a top recruit, it wouldn't even be a question for me. I would go play pro, whether it be in Europe or New Zealand or whatever the case may be. I would not go to the NCAA.
No, I absolutely agree with that 100%. So let's go ahead and move on to the NBA. We're going to have a new game here. It's either going to be swish or brick. We will give a talking point, and we will discuss whether or not it is a swish or a brick. So the Lakers have the best record in the Western Conference. They are the clear favorite to beat any other team in a 7-game series.
I completely disagree with that. They are playing the best basketball right now. But I said before the season started, I picked the Clippers to win the Western Conference and the title, and I'm not going to abandon that. The Clippers, they've been sitting everybody all they can the whole time. Kawhi hasn't played one back-to-back. Paul George has missed games to start the year. They've been load managing even Patrick Beverley and Lou Williams. Nobody talks about that, though, because they're not as big name guys. And they're only 3 games back of the Lakers, who have just been exhaustive. In that game against Milwaukee that they wound up losing, Anthony Davis played 43 minutes.
That's smart.
Yeah, and LeBron has played every single game so far except for the most recent one against the Nuggets when he had the strained groin muscle, he said, and the thoracic muscle on his back. For me, the Clippers are still the best favorite, the top team in the West or in the league, in my opinion. Because the thing is, you can sit Paul George or Kawhi Leonard every other night and go into most NBA stadiums and win. They were the 8 seed with none of those dudes, and just having one. They only had Kawhi and beat LeBron and the Lakers no problem in Game 1 of the NBA. So they're going to coast to the finish line. They're going to be healthy. The Clippers are. And I wholeheartedly expect them to still win the West and still win the NBA title. With that being said, though, I think what the LeBron and the Lakers are trying to do, since they have an older team, they're trying to build that record up early so later on in the season they can rest and stuff like that. Because if you rest and you have a big lead and you've won a lot of games, people can say at least they've earned it, that kind of thing. But no, for me, the Clippers are still the favorite.
I wouldn't call the Clippers the favorite. I didn't think the Lakers are the favorite right now. I wouldn't call it the clear favorite, like you said. Clippers all playing all their guys, and the Lakers all playing their guys exhaustingly.
Yeah.
Right now, I think the Lakers are the best team in the NBA right now. But I would not say they're clearly the best team to beat any team in a 7-game series.
Yeah, I think that the Clippers are still, my favorite coming out of the West. Just, and they're playing this smart. Like Fletcher said, they are resting guys where they can choose their spots, and they're still only 3 games back of this thing. And realistically, I think that the Lakers are wanting to build up this big lead to kind of maybe, assert their dominance on this thing. But realistically, hey, if you get the 2 seed in the West and you're the Clippers, guess what? You're going to play every single game at the Staples Center.
Yeah.
So, obviously,
No matter when you run into the Clipper or Lakers, you're going to have a home game. So
yeah, so it's really not that important at this point, especially since you do have just 2 powerhouses in the West here, both playing in the same stadium. The home court advantage means absolutely nothing in this situation. So I don't think that the Lakers are the clear favorite in the West. I would say that the Clippers are they are the best team. They're taking 2 different routes to this thing.
Yeah.
And realistically, I think they're the only 2 teams that can possibly win the West.
Well, the thing is, when Kawhi signed there, he made it clear that load management was going to be a thing, and I think Steve Ballmer, being the guy he is, he's like, I just want to have my team ready for the playoffs, essentially. But for the Clippers and Lakers specifically, even when Lob City was going on and the Lakers were absolute garbage, it was still a Laker town, and I think they understand. From the Clippers' perspective, I think they understand that that's probably never going to change. Even when you win 50, 60 games in the regular season, you have to win a title
yes.
to even have a glimpse at changing that. And so I think that's what they're striving for right now.
All right, so next up, the Miami Heat are currently holding on to the 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. They are a serious threat to win for the rest of the season.
They're a serious threat in the sense that, they're going to keep winning games. They have a lot of young dudes on their team.
A ton of young guys.
Yeah, I know. And the thing is, they have always been good at drafting. They've always been good at developing guys. Bam Adebayo, Tyler Hero, Derek Jones, Kendrick Dunn. Those are just a couple guys off the top of my head, you know what I mean?
Even Duncan Robinson's giving them good minutes.
Yeah, Duncan Robinson, and then you throw in a guy like Jimmy Butler on top of it. And the thing is with Miami, people don't realize this, how serious they take that their sort of physical conditioning kind of stuff. They weigh in each week to test their body fat and their weight and make sure that they're proportioned. And you have to, in order to have a good, to where they want them, you have to watch what you eat. So that means all of the guys are, conditioning themselves, putting good things in their body. But, even Justice Winslow, just the dudes on their team right now and how good they're playing, those young guys, it blows my mind. So, and they have plenty of shooting too. And so you can always shoot your way to 50 wins. You're going to have a guy like Jimmy Butler who can carry you down the stretch. He's a late game guy too. Plenty of 3-point shooting. They have Goran Dragic, who's a legitimate 1-2. They didn't really want to pay him like they're paying him this year, but plenty of shooting, plenty of defense, young guys who can really run up and down the court, and then you throw in a Jimmy Butler there with Eric Spoelstra and what Pat Riley is doing in Miami. So I definitely believe in Miami for the regular season.
Yeah, they can too. Only they can stay healthy and Biden and keep averaging 5.5 assists a game, passing the high post and low post like that.
Yeah,
they can win games throughout the Indiana Pacers the past few seasons. They kind of won the same way. Just they played ugly basketball, played good defense.
Yeah,
and some game they scored 120 points and they win the games. If he can play like that and stay healthy, I think they can be a threat even in the playoffs this year.
Well, I told you guys before the season started that Bam Adebayo was going to be a serious contender for Most Improved Player of the Year, and it wasn't that he just all of a sudden got good or something. He's just now getting the minutes and the work. They got rid of Hassan Whiteside to bring in Myers Leonard and some shooting, and they're just throwing Bam Adebayo out there and saying, "Here's 30 minutes, do what you want with it," and it's just working out for him. So I think it's incredibly smart with what they've done. They just believe in those younger guys and throw them out there.
See, this is... I know I said it last year, leading into the postseason. I'm going to label this team as a try-hard team.
Yeah.
Where it's basically their guys are more locked in than your guys, and they're going to try harder than you every single night. But once the playoffs hit, it's a different story. Because then the talent obviously wins 9 times out of 10 once the playoffs come around.
Yeah.
You have a bunch of young guys who are locked in every single night that are, they are trying to make a name for themselves. They're still on, those rookie contracts, so they're going to be looking for a big contract, in a couple of years. And they haven't really gotten paid yet, so they're very, very hungry, and they're trying harder than everybody else. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Butler is the ultimate try-hard in the NBA, where he's locked in every single night, and you're going to get the best Jimmy Butler at the game 1 of the regular season, game 40 of the regular season, and then game 1 of the playoffs all the way through the playoffs. That guy is locked in every single night. And teams like this, where you really don't understand why they're winning games, because if you just look at the roster isn't as talented as the other team, but they bring it every single night, so they're trying to win every single game.
Yeah.
And I think that we're going to run into this situation once it comes to the playoffs. If they get home court advantage, say they're a 4-3 seed, I'm not going to buy into them as much, just because it's just a ton of unproven guys who realistically, I still question whether or not they're talented. Together as a team, they're doing well during the regular season, but ultimately, I'm afraid that this team is one of those try-hard teams where they're not as talented, but just a random Wednesday, they're going to beat you in a game of basketball.
Yeah, I feel like I broke a record saying this, because I've said it on Hump Day Hoops and Stereo so much for the past 2 years, but depth in the regular season matters, being fresh in the regular season matters, and so they've got a lot of depth and a lot of young guys who can go out there and run and play, and sometimes you run into an older team, like you said, on a Wednesday and whatever, and they're just like, well, we're down double digits in the third, let's just mail it in, it's not worth it, where Miami's like, yeah, we want it, we'll get it. They're a younger team wanting to prove themselves. So, and then in the playoffs, you shorten your rotation, a lot of that experience and age kind of matters then.
All right, next up, we have the Pelicans are 7-23 and are challenging the Warriors for the worst record in the Western Conference. With this season in an absolute freefall and poor play from all the offseason acquisitions outside of Brandon Ingram, Zion will not step on an NBA court this season.
I think the longer he stays out, I think I might have to go say it's a swish on this one, just because what's the point in bringing him back?
None.
There's really no reason. I can't remember. I was reading up on it when he was having surgery on his meniscus, and I can't for the life of me remember it now, but it's like there are two forms to repair a torn meniscus. One is I'm probably going to mess up the verbiage here, but it's one is you cut it and the other way is you twist it or whatever. D-Wade, when he was in Miami, because there's one that's going to keep you out about a month or two, and the other one can keep you about 3 or 4 months. But the one that keeps you out 3 or 4 months, there's more long-term success that comes with it versus getting back on the court sooner. Mm-hmm. And D-Wade chose the shorter option. And I think if you went back and asked him, he would probably prefer the longer option instead. So the fact that they're keeping Zion out longer makes me think that they probably chose that latter option that preserved longevity. The thing is, they had Derek Favors, they had JJ Redick. Zion hasn't played, so presumably, he would help their win-loss column. But a lot of the same problems still plagues the Pelicans. They still have a bunch of guards who suck still, basically. They have Kendrick Williams, Etuan Moore, Darius Miller, Nicolo Melli is actually a forward, Frank Jackson. There are a bunch of dudes on here, Josh Gray. No one's really worried about those guys, you know what I mean? They can't really handle the ball, and they shoot it pedestrian. Their center, Jackson Hayes, hasn't played a whole lot. Lonzo Ball has actually been coming off the bench lately because he's played so poorly. So there's just a lot of question marks in New Orleans. I know everybody was ready to crown David Griffin as the smartest man of all time during the offseason, but it's a lot of the same problems are still there for them.
And yeah, I agree with you. The only point of him playing at this point would be to sell tickets. But like you said, if he gets hurt, even with he is now, and he's out all next season, and his career is ruined, not only did you waste the first round pick, and momentum just killed. That would be such a colossal failure for a franchise. That's how people lose jobs. That's terrible. A rookie scenario.
No, I absolutely agree. I think this is a swish. He should not be on an NBA court this year. There's absolutely no point. I understand it's he needs to get acclimated to the NBA game. He played in college games that were a lot bigger than what any of his, regular season NBA games are going to be. And it's absolutely pointless. The guy has played in huge basketball games, so he's going to be able to step on the court day one and be ready for that. Yeah. But to risk injury and to basically not let him rehab to his fullest is pointless. Plus, if you're bad, you can continue to be bad for the rest of this year, and maybe,
get LaMelo Ball, a guard that doesn't suck.
Yes. Get LaMelo Ball. And all the Ball brothers will be in L.A., Louisiana.
Yeah. Louisiana, yeah. Yeah, and they've even mentioned throwing the idea around of trading Drew Holiday now. I don't know.
I think that's smart.
Yeah, at this point, you might as well be as bad as you can. Get something out of it. You could trade if you get 2 high picks. You could
do him a favor.
Yeah, do him a favor for sure. But then you could pull those players in to get a veteran if you believe in your team that much that Zion and a veteran can turn it around, or you can get a couple of younger players. People were talking about the Pelicans maybe making the playoffs. I'm like, dude, a change of scenery is not going to be that much different for Lonzo Ball. He's still shooting 50% from the free throw line. Can't even hit over 40% from the field. Like,
They're the Browns.
yeah, there's just not a whole lot there. Yeah, you're in the right direction, and you've changed your front office to matter. But in 1 year, no, get real.
All right, next up. Currently averaging 29 points, 9 rebounds, 9 assists. Luka Doncic is already a top NBA player, top 10.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a huge switch. I would even say that he might be like flirting with top 5, like you have right now.
I agree.
Because there's no KD, and then Kyrie, he's out, but he's not even on my radar. They're just some players I wouldn't touch, and like Westbrook and Kyrie are some of those guys. But like Giannis, LeBron, Harden, and then I think it might be Luka at that point. Like Luka is somehow the Dallas Mavericks. What's their seed right now? Let me look.
They're up there.
They're 5. And before Luka went down with this ankle sprain, they were 3. Like, Luka is so good. It doesn't even make sense to me. And, well, it makes 100% sense to me. The team success was blowing me. I didn't think that they would be able to guard anybody, and they still kind of can't. But their offense has just been hitting on all cylinders so much. And the thing is, like, Kristaps, last time I checked, Kristaps is really struggling shooting from the field. I think part of that is, like, nerves, and then on top of that he's playing limited minutes because they're going to load manage him coming off that ACL, so like he's not getting his rhythm and he's got those doubts, so he's kind of struggling. But like their team is not that good, but the sole reason they're at where they are right now is 100% because of Luka Doncic. You could really like make a case when he comes back, and if they get a top 4 seed, like you could make a case that he should be the MVP of the NBA.
Oh, absolutely.
And I was talking about it wouldn't even be a no-brainer for me that I would take Luka Doncic number 1 in the draft. And I said that, like, I pounded that desk and that drum so hard for Luka. And then they did a special on NBA The Jump, and they were like, the Phoenix Suns, they got to think about what it would be like to have Devin Booker and Luka Doncic. I wouldn't really... DeAndre Ayton averaged like 18 and 11 with a block a game. He could never get better for the rest of his life and go into the Hall of Fame and be like one of the best centers ever. So I'm not going to knock him too bad for that. But like Marvin Bagley, what? And
Yeah,
do you hear the
was
reason
terrible.
why Vlade Divac said he didn't want to draft Luka Doncic?
What was that?
He thought his dad was too cocky.
What?
Yeah, that's what he said. Because he knew his dad, I guess, from like the international ranks, whatever.
I bet they didn't even... Vlade Divac wouldn't have even ranked any of the Ball brothers.
Dude, Vlade Divac did not like Luka's dad at all. They thought that he didn't like him at all personally, I guess, and so that was why they decided to go with Marvin Bagley, essentially.
I've never even seen Luka's dad.
No, me either. You know what I mean? Like, that's crazy to me. And then... But they give him a pass for the Atlanta Hawks. They're like, well, the Atlanta Hawks, like, you got to give them a pass. Like, they got Trae Young and a first-round pick. Like, okay, Trae Young and Cam Reddish, like, I would still take Luka, and it's not even a fucking question.
Yes, I absolutely agree. Leighton C, top 10 player?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a month or 2 ago, you asked the same question. I wasn't ready to
Yes.
say it yet, but watching him play, like, he's making defenders
He's
look...
so good.
He's making defenders look stupid.
Yes.
Like, he manipulating the game the way he wants it, and it's honestly just super impressive. And I think his PER is like 32 or something.
Yeah, he's insane.
He did triple doubles this year.
He's shooting like just under 50% from the field, I think. His 3-point percentage could be a little better, but that always happens when you have the ball in your hands as the point guard. Like Brogdon, his 3-point percentage and field goal percentage has gone down just because he is the primary playmaker now, and so it's not that easy to get wide open shots on the wing, like on a weak side rotation kind of thing. But Luka, it blows my mind how good Luka Doncic is.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think this is a swish all the way. He's the only player in the NBA in the top 20 in points per game, rebounds per game, and assists per game, and he's not even in the top 40 of minutes per game.
Yeah, that's the thing. I was seeing a stat the other day, and it was like, he had some kind of crazy triple-double that only Russell Westbrook's had, but the only difference is, like, Luka played like 11 less minutes than he did. He did it essentially in 3 quarters. So
No, I absolutely agree there. So, last one.
it is a mistake, though, for the same reason that he signed with Jordan, the same reason that Zion did. Remember that?
Yeah.
Because it's a subsidiary. Like, Jordan's already its own subsidiary of Nike. Like, what are you going to do? Develop a Luka logo from Jordan? That's not going to happen.
That's not going to happen. Last one. Through 31 games, the 76ers are a pedestrian 21-10, but they will be a top 3 team in the conference and a serious threat to make the NBA Finals.
I don't know that they're going to be a top... It's hard for me to sit there and say it's a swish for the top 3 seed because I know Pascal and Marc Gasol are out right now for the Raptors, so that hurts them. I don't know how long they're going to be out because Pascal had like a groin issue, I think, and then Marc is had a hamstring issue, but they've still been playing well. They're leading the Pacers right now at the end of the 3. But again, the Toronto Raptors have a lot of depth. That's kind of why Kawhi was able to load manage and then win all those games last year. I think Philadelphia is really just built for the playoffs. Like, they have all this size, all this length, not a lot of depth, but they have a lot of older guys who have been there. I kind of buy them into the playoffs a little more than I do. It's kind of like the opposite of the Heat, really.
The opposite of a try-hard team.
Yeah, they are really not trying
They're
too
just
hard.
super talented.
Yeah, I don't buy into the Philadelphia 76ers that much as far as even winning a title or, being a serious threat for the East. The Matisse Thybulle, like, he's been good, but, like, other than that, there aren't a whole lot of guys that they're throwing out there that are really scaring me. And then come playoffs for, like, the Raptors or the Bucks, or maybe even the Celtics too, because they defend so well off a pick and roll. I just don't buy them offensively, especially against those top defensive teams in the East. So I think it's almost a brick for me at this point.
So no, Philadelphia is fucked. I said this months ago when they signed Al Horford, it wasn't going to work out because they want me to score from the outside because Ben Simmons can't shoot and Embiid is a very, very okay shooter. Al Horford can't shoot. Lost Redick. Yeah, they play awesome defense. Fantastic. But they're not going to change it like that way. Pacers can't do it. Heat can't do it. You won't fucking do it in Philadelphia. You fucked off. And you lost.
You look at the top seeds here, like the top 6 teams in the East. Like, you have the Bucks, Celtics, Heat, Raptors, 76ers, and then the Pacers. Like, a lot of those teams are right there next to Philadelphia. And Philadelphia really hasn't had any, like, serious injuries or
no
even
adversity.
No adversity at all. Whenever you look at the Celtics, obviously there's been a guy out almost every single day for the Celtics, still ahead of the 76ers. The Raptors, obviously what Fletcher said earlier with Siakam being out, and it seems like everybody on the team is hurt right now. They've had some adversity, and the Pacers have played without Victor Oladipo all season. So I don't necessarily think that this team will be a top 3 seed in the East, but they have that factor to where they're the exact opposite of a try-hard team. They have a bunch of guys who are actually really good at basketball. But I still don't see this team winning the East. I don't see them beating the Bucks. I don't see them beating the Celtics. And realistically, I think once the Pacers get Victor Oladipo back, I like them even more than the 76ers. There's not a whole lot on the team that just absolutely scares me. You have a point guard that can't shoot and a center that is supposedly this huge dominant force that doesn't even shoot 50% from the field.
Yeah.
So I'm not buying into the 76ers.
Doesn't even shoot 48% from the field.
What the team is missing is a Jimmy Butler, realistically. And, well, they let him walk. So the Heat are kind of reaping those rewards right now. And I want nothing more than a Heat versus 76ers playoff
that would be sweet.
Playoff matchup, because I think we'd get the best Jimmy Butler we've probably ever seen in our lives.
Try hard times 10. The 76ers, like Horford, Tobias, Ben Simmons, even Joel Embiid, even though he's very demonstrative and does a lot of talking. Even Joel Embiid, I feel like those guys are all a bunch of 2 guys. They're a bunch of betas. No real alpha dog on the team to really, like LeBron or Kawhi or James Harden, Luka, any of those guys, Giannis. They don't have that kind of guy on their team. They're just a bunch of B-plus dudes.
Yes, I absolutely agree.
B-plus guys with like not a lot of dudes behind them either. Like Korkmaz and Mike Scott.
No, nobody's scared of that.
You're 7 years late, Mike Scott. It's over.
So, Saucy 6-pack of games. We have 6 games. All of them have
NBA tournament.
NBA tournament. Why do you guys hate that?
Because what's the point of it? You're gonna have like James Harden. Like no star's gonna play in that tournament. The stars don't need $1 million. So you're gonna see a bunch of 7 through 12 men out there playing.
I like it.
Here's what's gonna happen. So, what Leighton said is partially right. Like a lot of your guys who were making those guaranteed contracts and that guaranteed money, they will not play in it. There's no reason for them to play in it. Like, it's not college, it's not the basketball tournament. They're not going to play in it. So what's going to happen is, like, teams are going to play like their bottom of the bench, and they're going to call a bunch of their G League guys to play in this tournament, and then like $1 million would be a nice payday for them. So they're probably going to play with some motivation. But the thing is, like, what that could do though is, by calling up those younger players, you could create a farm system that would allow those younger guys to go straight from high school to the pros, and then still have a system for them to get worked into that NBA team at some point. And so that's like the only good that could come out of it. That's the only good. And I think they would have to do it close to the All-Star break as well.
Yeah, I just think it's a good idea. Like, NBA season, I've said it time and time again, like, nobody really cares about the NBA season, and nobody's really dialed in. Like, it's very, very long, and I think something right in the middle would kind of, freshen things up. And I mean, yeah, the title's really not going to mean anything. But like for some of those bottom of the barrel players, like the $1 million is good payday for them. Like that might be the biggest paycheck some of these guys in the NBA ever get in one lump sum. So I think it would be cool. And plus, it would kind of be interesting to see how it pans out. And I really don't think that there should be really any incentive on this as far as like playoff seeding or anything like that. But I just think that a tournament in the middle of the season would be, I know it's goofy, but
very goofy.
I think that as far as a viewing perspective, I would watch it. I would 100% watch it.
Yeah.
And I think everybody else would watch it too. And, it's something to get your mid ratings boost up right in the middle of the dog days of the NBA season. I think it'd be fine.
The only good that I could see coming out of it is, like I said, you develop that pathway and that framework to have a way for those high school players to skip college and all that crap and go straight to the pros, play, get mixed in a year in or, a few months into an actual NBA game, NBA coaches, NBA players, even though they might not be super high caliber, but even NBA players, I think that could work. And the thing is, like, maybe a lot of people probably wouldn't watch it since it's going to be your bottom tier guys and your younger guys. But like for me,
I don't see why the Stars wouldn't play in it though.
I would.
If you don't play a back to back, if you set it up to where there's like, so the way it would be a 32 team bracket, and there would be at most you could play is 5 games, and that's if you win a championship. You would basically play 5 games in 10 days. You could set it up to where the first round you get 8 games on one day, 8 games the second day. Then the next round you get 4 games one day, 4 games the next day, and set it up to where people don't have to play back-to-backs. I think that you would actually have stars playing in it, and plus from a viewer perspective, you could get a lot of games that you necessarily wouldn't see throughout the regular season one extra time.
They wouldn't play it because they're playing games against the actual standing NBA team to play the regular season games, but it means nothing to the actual standings. And to a lot of these stars that make the guaranteed contracts, they don't care about shit that doesn't matter to the season. They care about winning the championships at this point because one thing make that much money, because right now every NBA player is getting paid a shit ton of money. All they want to do is win championships. So the stars like James Harden, Westbrook, LeBron James, fucking Chris Paul, Luka Doncic, Porzingis wouldn't do it because they'll be playing against same teams, same players again that don't mean anything to them.
Well, I think that if you go ahead and shorten the NBA season to where it's down like, you go from 82, you go to 77, and you play those 5 games in there, and you actually just take it and put it into the standings, and that's really all the playoff implications it would have, would be that it just adds to the standings as the season goes on, and instead of playing just some random game on a Wednesday, you would be playing in the basketball tournament, and just put it at a neutral site somewhere.
Yeah, they have to make it matter in the end for it to work.
Yes, I agree. If you go like 77-game regular season plus that in the middle, and that counts towards your standings, I think that would actually hold some value, and it would boost viewing up a ton. Yeah,
well, here's the thing. If they try to make it matter, that's not going to work because the Players Association will shoot it down so quick. And then the thing is, like, if you make it, because the only way it's going to happen is if it doesn't matter, and that's the only way the Players Association would approve of it. And if you don't make it matter, no one's going to play in it outside of those bottom tier guys and those younger guys that you could call up for that G League, because the NBA season matters, but it's already being watered down so much.
Oh, it's bad at this point.
And so even if you have an exhibition game in the regular season now, it's no one's going to give it any thought whatsoever.
Right. I just think it could be good on different platforms and different reasons. And the thing is, I think we should give it a trial run.
What do you do? Do you do a neutral site, or do you make everybody travel to play these games?
No, you couldn't do the travel.
And the thing is, like, where does the site rotate, and then you have like
Vegas every year, just like every other goofy tournament.
Thing. Are you going to have 30 NBA teams and all their staffs and everybody staying in a very limited space? Like, there are a lot of logistics you got to work out there that aren't as easy as just rolling out the red carpet, so to speak.
We got to make it work. I think that would be fun, and so many people would just like hate it so much that we would get a lot of talking points off of it too. So it'd be funny. All right, so saucy 6-pack of games. All of them have playoff implications. We'll do Eagles at Giants. Eagles win, and they're in. Who do you have?
Eagles. Giants not good.
Fuck, they gotta win.
Yeah, they have to win.
And the Giants have no incentive to. They have all the incentive in the world to lose this motherfucker. So.
Yeah, Eagles have to win this game. Eagles will win, I think, pretty handily. Next,
if they win this game, fucking Dave Gettleman will fire Pat Shurmur. He will fire him.
Pissed.
He will fire him.
Yeah, he should. All right, next up, Packers at Lions. Packers need to win to keep their hopes of a first-round bye.
All here in the Packers, same reason before, they have to win. The Lions want to lose this game.
Yeah, I think the Lions are going to try to play spoiler because I think what's his name? God, I can't believe I'm blanking on his name right now. Fat guy, the coach.
Patricia.
Yeah, Matt Patricia. I think he probably is going to get fired no matter what. So I could see him saying like, let's just spoil it for not only the people who are going to can my ass, but also for the Packers. But no, the Packers are going to win.
Yeah, no, Packers are definitely going to win this game. Next up, Saints at Panthers. Saints need to win this game for the first round bye.
Saints.
Yep.
Saints
I
in a
just saw the
landslide.
Colts fucking clean their clock, no problem. So yeah.
No, this is going to be an ugly game. Next up, Steelers at Ravens. Ravens obviously are going to be quarterbacked by RG3. Steelers have to win this game to keep their playoff hopes alive.
I will go with the Steelers on this one because it's alive, and I think the Ravens are going to pull back a whole lot. Like, this game's
Meaningless.
mean nothing to them at all. I don't think the Steelers even play into the second half of this game.
Yeah, not even to mention like sitting at quarterback. I think seeing and having no reason to play on top of it. I think seeing Mark Ingram go down was a big enough scare for them. They're gonna sit like a bunch of dudes like if they
I even saw that like Marshall Yonda and guys aren't playing in it.
I was gonna say like if you kept track of that, like they might have an all-time amount of like starters and guys who actually play a decent amount of minutes get sit for this game. And
Yeah.
if you kept track of stuff like that, it would be an all-time number. So yeah, definitely the Steelers.
Yeah, 2 weeks from now we'll be talking about rest versus rust with the Ravens. I think that the Steelers will win this game just because the Ravens really don't care to win this game. Next up, Titans at Texans. Titans win, and they are in.
I'm going to go with the Titans. Talked about earlier, they have anything to play for. They were humming. I think even if this game mattered, I was supposed to be taking the Titans.
I can't believe you said that because I totally agree. I would take the Titans in this game no matter what.
Yeah, I take this game, if they play in 2 weeks in the playoffs, I still take the Titans. I think the Titans are the better, more complete team. And I think they have the better coach.
Well, not hard, better coach than Bill O'Brien.
Yeah, there's not many worse, so you have to pick the Titans on that. Next up, 49ers at Seahawks. Winner wins the NFC West. Who wins?
I'm with the 49 in this one. The Seahawks beat them at Candlestick, but I'm going to go up there. The Seahawks was awful last week. Maybe the Cardinals figure something out. Way to stop surrounding Russell Wilson. There's no doubt in my mind that Kyle Shanahan's going to watch the tape from last week and see what the Cardinals did. And I bet on defense, 49ers can do anything better than the Cardinals did on defense.
I'm taking the Seahawks because they got embarrassed. And so when really good teams like that get embarrassed, they respond back in a big way. I don't see the 49ers, the way they played recently, I don't see them traveling that well up to Seattle with the 12th man. Even though the Seahawks are short man, I think for whatever reason, the Seahawks never make things easy on themselves in any game, and so I think that they're going to play up to this competition like they've been playing down to the competition in a lot of games. A lot of games they've won against bad teams. They're ugly wins, like with the Falcons and now the Cardinals, so I'm still taking the Seahawks against the 49ers.
Yeah, I mean, just 2 weeks ago, we saw the 49ers get embarrassed by the Falcons. I mean, and I say they get embarrassed, but they lost on a last-second touchdown. But anytime you lose to the Falcons during this season, you get embarrassed. Well, they had their respond game and go and beat the Rams. Now, Seahawks, they get embarrassed last week against the Cardinals. What are they going to do this week? I think they're going to respond well. I don't know who's going to be the running back. Probably going to be Travis Homer at this point. I don't think it's necessarily going to matter.
It's Marshawn Lynch.
I hope it's Marshawn Lynch, but I don't necessarily think it even matters since you have Russell Wilson back there under center. And if you ask me who's going to win in a must-win game, it's very similar to last week. You've seen the records on Carson Wentz versus Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott has dominated the series against Carson Wentz. But in a game where it absolutely matters, who steps up to the occasion? Carson Wentz, the guy who is the better quarterback. Who's going to step up when it matters here? I think it's Russell Wilson, well over Jimmy Garoppolo, and I will take that 10 out of 10 times in a must-win game. All right, so it is time to put our producer in the spotlight. Each week he goes out and watches several different movies, and he brings at least one in to review. So, Latency, what do you have for us today?
This week, no surprise, it's Star Wars Episode 9, Rise of the Skywalker. Jake, I know you've seen no Star Wars at all, plus I'm not sure about your Star Wars watching.
I've seen all of them except for the new one.
Alright, so
That surprises me.
I think, so Star Wars Episode 9.
Talent.
So this is the conclusion of the Skywalker saga, which started 30
The
years.
conclusion, it's over?
Yep.
That's bullshit.
It started
Bullshit.
Until the next one.
Well, it started 40 years ago, 1970.
The only reason I'm thinking about getting Disney Plus is to watch The Mandalorian, so...
You can just borrow mine.
Well, that's easy enough.
All right, problem solved. But Skywalker, like I said, conclusion of the entire saga, and I gotta say it, guys, not very good movie.
Yeah, I knew you'd fucking bitch.
It's not like movie. It's just that since Disney bought the Star Wars thing, there's always the fear that they were going to go all Disney on it and basically leave behind everything Star Wars has ever really came up to be. Well, in Force Awakens, they didn't do that at all. Force Awakens was a really good movie, followed the path of every Star Wars ever, but people didn't like it because it was like the first one. The Last Jedi came out, Ryan Johnson made that one, and it was so different than every other Star Wars movie ever made, and the major fans hated it because it was so different. So this one came out, and it played it so insanely safe. Not take a single risk. It's so predictable. You're not shocked at any point in time in the movie. It honestly got boring halfway through it.
That's not good.
J.J. Abrams honestly did what Disney execs told him to do. It's not his fault that Disney execs knew people hated The Last Jedi, and they had to make this one work. So what did he do? Any risk he could possibly have taken, he pulled back. The only major death in this movie was Princess Leia. And why did she die? Because in real life, Carrie Fisher OD'd. So, Adam Driver, Kylo Ren, David Ridley was Rey. They did great jobs. Oscar Isaac was Poe. They played Finn, did great jobs. But ultimately, the story around it all was unsatisfying. The mystery that was made 6 years ago now, when they first made Force Awakens, about Rey, her origin, all that stuff, fell flat on his face. I'm not going to spoil anything major about it, but for me, the payoff was just not there for it. You're going to go see it because it's Star Wars, but go in there with low expectations. I have seen it twice.
How many dips?
I have seen it twice. Normal rule on that is automatic 2.5 or 3, but I've seen it twice because I saw it once when it came out opening night. And yesterday, my girlfriend family wanted to go see it, so I saw it again with them. Second time I saw it, it was much worse than the first time I saw it. 1.6 dips.
Oh, wow.
See, okay, let me just start by saying this. There are some of you people like you who go watch these movies for whatever, and it's like you're too close to the trees to see the forest, in my opinion. If you go and watch people fucking swing lightsabers at each other, fly through space with Space Wars, and use an inanimate force to control things, I'm not going to go in there and bitch about the storyline.
You're right, but it's been done well 8 times before this.
I could go on to, yeah, okay. So like the more you see of it, the higher your expectations get, and it's not the same as what you saw before, so you have problems with it. I bet if I searched enough on the internet, I could find reviews that would say, "Oh, there were just some parts of Star Wars I didn't think were believable."
Yes.
You know?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
Like, I'm not. If you go to Star Wars, I'm not sitting there trying to watch, the fucking Da Vinci Code kind of storyline. It's just not what I'm going for. So I don't go watch Thomas the Train and expect to see a sweet ass fucking gunfight.
Okay, yeah, you're right. But let's say early brought in talking about Skip Bayless and his borderline for what makes LeBron James suck.
Yeah.
And there's that line there. If Bonnie from below that line, he sucks. Above it, he is good.
So you're comparing it to other Star Wars.
Wars over 40, yes. Star Wars over 40 years has made, fuck that. Star Wars over the past 6 years has made the baseline for what the movie should be. And this one just won't play it safe. It was dying to be loved so much that it fell flat for people who just wanted more, I guess, I want to say.
Well, I'm going to say two things to that. You can't really hate on them for what you just said, because what you're telling me is that they're a victim of their own success.
They are no.
So you're not measuring them for previous performances. The bar hasn't been set so high.
Okay, yes, they're a victim of his success, but...
And for two, when you talk about guys like in sports with Dak Prescott and LeBron James, the two arguments we had before, they're like clear, measurable, quantifiable inputs and outputs into that, the
box office numbers,
the completion percentage,
it sucked there too, actually.
The completion percentage, the points per game, the turnovers, all that stuff is measurable. This is just like all opinion.
And guess what? To my opinion, if Phil Fisher, go fuck yourself.
All right. Well, I'm still gonna watch it. I'm still gonna enjoy it, and I haven't even seen it, and all I've heard is bad reviews. So
I hope you like it.
I've enjoyed every new.
Oh, you'll love it.
I've liked them. Yeah.
You watch movies like me, you'll love it.
Every movie you walk out of, that was the best movie of all time.
Best movie I've ever watched. It's the most recent. So, guys, any bold predictions for this week?
I don't know if it's it's not gonna happen within the week, but I think Russell Wilson's gonna win the MVP over Lamar Jackson. Two things. It's again the shiny new toy thing that we all fall in love with, but Lamar Jackson has 12 Pro Bowlers and Greg Roman. I know guys who know who Greg Roman is. Mm-hmm. He was the one who really kind of orchestrated that offense for Colin Kaepernick. Like, he has so much going for him. Russell Wilson has a defensive head coach. His pass blocking and his run blocking are crap. He's been throwing to nobody all year long. His defense has come on kind of late, but they've been shoddy all year long, and he's still in a position to win the division, and maybe, I don't know how that's going to all work out, maybe have a first-round bye or whatever, but Russell Wilson, if they are not on that team, they are garbage. They are like worse than, they are competing for the number one spot. If the Ravens have just not Lamar Jackson and whoever afterwards, they could still be kind of what the Colts are right now.
Yeah, no, I did the numbers on it one show, and it was like if Lamar Jackson had scored 24 points every single game, he would still be 11-3 or whatever he was at the time, and then or 11-2 or whatever he was at the time. And if Russell Wilson had scored 24 points in every single game, they'd be like 3-8.
Yeah, so Russell Wilson is my MVP, and I think he will win the MVP. So that's my bold prediction.
Mine is to make the playoffs.
That is bold.
That's very, very bold.
25 things.
My bold prediction is that Clemson wins this game by 10+. I think they're just going to run house. They're going to beat Ohio State, and I think it's going to be a big stamp on how good they've been over the last, 4 or 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I hope I'm right on that.
I really hope that Lincoln Riley wins the college football playoff, so he for sure leaves Oklahoma and goes to the Cowboys.
That'd be funny. Urban Meyer is going to be the Cowboys head coach.
I think he'd be better fit.
And on that note, for Drake, for Leighton C. and Fletch, Dippers, as always, stay saucy.